Chapter 2378. After that, Yun Jian did not care about the opinions of others. She glanced sideways at the dozen men who had moved the sword to the scene. When these men saw this, they immediately stepped forward and moved the sword away from the fencing field. For a time, the news of the reappearance of the legendary flower sword that was rumored to have disappeared in 1942 spread like wildfire. Yun Jian's frivolous words shocked everyone present. She had the legendary invincible sword, but she did not use it. Was she stupid? However, because of Yun Jian's words, the people sitting in the audience seats looked forward to one thing even more. That was, how far could a woman like Yun Jian go with her own strength? The host was also used to seeing ups and downs. After he came back to his senses, he quickly calmed the audience. Haha. Haha. Just now, it was a pre-match entertainment game directed and performed by our school's students for us. Everyone, please don't mind it. Then, I announce that our school's annual fencing competition has officially begun. Because there were more students participating in the fencing competition, the progress of the fencing competition was in an elimination format. There were at least 10 small fencing fields that could be used for fencing competitions. In other words, there were 10 small fencing fields that could be used for one-on-one fencing competitions at the same time. The students would use the method of drawing lots to compete with the person who drew the corresponding number. The loser would be directly eliminated, and the winner would proceed to the next round of drawing lots and continue to compete with the person who drew the corresponding number. When there were only 10 people left, the finals of the fencing competition would officially begin. During the finals, all 10 small fencing fields would be inactive. The last 10 people would compete one-on-one in the largest fencing field. In other words, there was nothing to see in the elimination rounds. When 10 small fencing competitions were held together, the audience's eyes would be overwhelmed. Only when there were 10 people left, all the small fencing fields would be inactive. One-on-one, one match would be held at the same time. At this time, it was the most interesting show. The competition would begin immediately. Yun Jian drew the number 6 for the first time. It seemed that she and 6 were really fated. However, when the boy who competed with her for the first time saw her, he remembered that Yun Jian had lifted the legendary sword that weighed 500 kilograms. Before the competition started, he admitted defeat. Yun Jian. In the next few elimination rounds, the opponents that Yun Jian met either admitted defeat in fear or kept defending when they were fencing with Yun Jian, afraid that Yun Jian would use the sword to touch their bodies. A fencing competition was a sport where two people held special steel swords and wore protective gear. They would stab or chop within a specified time and place. During the competition, one side would use the tip of their sword to stab the opponent. The sword tip would accurately stab the effective part of the opponent's body, and the side with the highest number of effective hits would win. In layman's terms, it was to use the tip of the flower sword to hit the opponent's effective part, and the side that hit more times would win. And Yun Jian's body. Let's not talk about whether the opponent could hit her or not. When she attacked, it was usually a combo. There was even a student who was participating in the fencing competition, who was continuously hit in the effective part by Yun Jian's sword tip. He retreated and did not dare to open his eyes. In the end, he accidentally slipped and rolled on the ground. He was so scared that he covered his head to avoid Yun Jian's sword tip. Even the judges almost burst out laughing when they saw his comical appearance. Yun Jian's initial fencing style was not outstanding. Instead, it was the fencing style used by Luo Zhejun, Wei Min, and Hong Ling that showed off in the preliminary competition. Therefore, the audience who were initially interested in Yun Jian and felt that Yun Jian must have some ability since she was so confident before, instantly shifted their attention away. Unknowingly, there were only 10 people left in the fencing competition. This also meant that the most intense ranking competition, the finals, had officially begun. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2379. I think the youngest daughter of the Wei family, Wei Lin, can't take it anymore. She was so arrogant and cocky before, but she didn't amaze the world with a single brilliant feat in these few rounds. Wei Min's eldest daughter, Wei Min, has improved a lot compared to Bai Nian. That Wei Lin, could it be that she's bragging to stand out? Someone in the audience couldn't help but complain loudly. Hearing this, the audience all looked at Yun Jian in the fencing field. There were also a few people who had noticed that Yun Jian didn't have any amazing performance from the beginning to the end, So they all started to talk about it. I think he doesn't have much strength. That legendary flower sword just now. Could it be that it was also used to put on a show? I think that Wei Lin has been very close to Luo Zhejun's younger brother, Luo Zhechen. Luo Zhechen begged his brother Luo Zhejun to help him pretend that he couldn't lift that flower sword, and then put on a few shows. That's not impossible. Some people even suspected that Yun Jian's every move just now had been discussed with others, and that she was just putting on a show. Sigh, people these days are capable of doing anything. That's right. But just watch. So what if that Wei Lin reaches the finals? Luo Zhejun will help her put on a show, but the champion position of the finals won't be given to her. Later, we'll know the truth. The students in the spectator seats complained in an experienced manner. At that moment, everyone was excitedly looking at the grand fencing field in the center of the gymnasium. The draw for the finals was also over. Yun Jian drew a 5. She narrowed her eyes. The ones who drew a 1 were Wei Min and a strong male student. In the end, Wei Min won the competition with a unique move. And Hong Ling and Luo Zhechen accidentally met. The two of them exchanged moves, and in the end, Luo Zhechen won. Hong Ling scratched his symbolic red hair and left the stage with some regret. There were a total of 2 people who drew the number 5. These 2 people were. When Yun Jian and Luo Zhejun walked onto the field from the left and right sides of the field, the audience was in an uproar. This wasn't the final battle yet. Yun Jian and Luo Zhejun had already started fighting. Yun Jian, the girl who kept saying that she would be the champion of this year's competition. And Luo Zhejun, who had been the champion of the fencing competition for several years. One had to know that there had not been a single female champion in the fencing competition for a full 50 years. Yun Jian, this girl. Could she really break the record of girls not being able to win the championship for 50 years and be looked down upon by all the boys? Just as the crowd began to cheer and get excited, Yun Jian and Luo Zhejun were already facing each other. The moment he saw Yun Jian, Luo Zhejun's expression changed. Then he grabbed his fencing helmet and said to Yun Jian, "You're just a girl. Girls shouldn't participate in this kind of competition for boys. You'd better stop." In Luo Zhejun's mind, these words were for the good of Yun Jian. After all, he didn't want to hurt her. But when Yun Jian heard this, she gave a cold smile. In the next second, the referee's voice announced the start of the competition. Without waiting for Luo Zhejun to speak again, Yun Jian appeared in front of Luo Zhejun in a flash with her sword in her hand in front of thousands of spectators. The moment Luo Zhejun raised his hand to stop her, the tip of the sword in her hand had already landed on Luo Zhejun's helmet. If it hit, it would count as 1 hit. Luo Zhejun reacted and was just about to deflect Yun Jian's sword that hit his helmet. With a backhand, Yun Jian used her sword to hit his torso, legs, hands, and arms 15 times in a row. In the knockout round, 15 fencing would take place within 9 minutes. The person who hit the opponent the most times would be considered the winner. But the competition had just begun, and only 10 seconds had passed on the stopwatch. Yun Jian had already hit Luo Zhejun's effective body part 15 times in just 10 seconds. Before the crowd could react, she had already turned around, pulled off her helmet, threw down her sword, and walked off the stage. At the same time, she left Luo Zhejun with a sentence that shocked everyone present. 15 consecutive fencing strikes in 10 seconds. You, the former champion of the fencing competition, are really a real waste. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2380. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Campus Rebirth. The strongest female secret agent. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 2381. Wei Min stood behind Yun Jian and shouted at Yun Jian confidently. She seemed to have a handle on Wei Min as she laughed arrogantly. Ce, who was about to leave with Yun Jian, suddenly stopped in his tracks. Even Yun Jian, who was about to leave, suddenly stopped in her tracks. When Wei Min saw Yun Jian's and Ce's reactions, she thought she had made the right bet. Her smile widened as she laughed maniacally. Then she leaned back as she laughed maniacally. "I forgot that you don't know that you're pregnant. I bribed the school doctor to keep it a secret at the school's infirmary." "Huh. What do you think? That handsome guy over there." You should be more careful when you find a girlfriend in the future. Our Wei family lost contact with this woman for 10 years. Who knows how many people have defiled her before. She probably doesn't even know who the bastard child in her stomach belongs to. Wei Min's words were clear and logical, as if that was really the case in reality. At that moment, Ce didn't hear what Wei Min said about Yun Jian. After he heard Wei Min say that Yun Jian was pregnant, he paused for a moment. In that instant, the corners of his lips curled up into an imperceptible smile. In the next second, in front of Wei Min, Ce grabbed Yun Jian's small hand and pulled Yun Jian into his embrace. He hugged Yun Jian tightly from behind and placed his hand on her abdomen. Ce didn't even dare to use too much force because he was afraid that his hand would affect the child in her stomach. Wei Min's heart skipped a beat when she saw his unconcealable joy and how he doted on Yun Jian so much that he wanted to treat her with all his kindness. Could it be that the child in Yun Jian's stomach is? Before Wei Min could react to Ce's actions and before Ce and Yun Jian could speak, a young man with a slightly rough voice suddenly sounded. His voice was trembling and filled with disbelief. What? Wei Lin? Wei Lin is pregnant. As soon as the voice fell, 4 figures walked out from the forest beside the school's gymnasium. These 4 figures were Luo Zhejun, Luo Zhechen, Wei Zhe, and Hong Ling. The young man's voice was none other than Luo Zhejun. Luo Zhejun had just followed Yun Jian and Ce out with Luo Zhechen and the other 2. When he heard Min's words, his face turned pale. Seeing Luo Zhejun suddenly appear, Wei Min's face turned pale. However, she gritted her teeth and decided to go all the way. She changed her sharp voice to that of a girl next door and said to Luo Zhejun, "Brother Zhejun, I heard it from the school doctor. She's pregnant. How long has it been since she returned to the Wei family?" And the school doctor said that she's been pregnant for 2 months. She hadn't returned to the Wei family at that time. What does this mean? It's very likely that she got pregnant after fooling around outside. She got pregnant before marriage. A young lady from a wealthy family got pregnant before marriage. She's destined to be ridiculed for being lascivious and unable to endure loneliness. She's ruining the Wei family's reputation. This time, Wei Min had sufficient words to prove that Yun Jian had done bad things before she returned to the Wei family. Women in the countryside got married early and got pregnant early. However, wealthy families usually didn't take wedding leave too early, let alone getting pregnant before marriage. This would be ridiculed. Wei Min was certain that Ce would dump Yun Jian after hearing about Yun Jian's pregnancy, and that her brother Zhejun would change his mind. However, just as Wei Min thought so, Luo Zhejun's face turned pale. Ce, who was standing in front of them, hugged Yun Jian's waist from behind and retracted his hand that was gently placed in front of her stomach as if he was protecting a treasure. Then, without waiting for everyone present, he took out a large notebook from his trouser pocket and showed it to everyone with a smile that angered both men and gods. Who said that we got pregnant before marriage? She's my wife. Whether she's pregnant or not, it's not up to you to tell her what to do. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2382. Ce's words were clearly heard by everyone present. His magnetic and mellow voice was exceptionally attractive. His voice was so crisp that it was enough for women to pursue and fantasize about. That voice was like a giant bell that struck the ears of Wei Min, Luo Zhejun, and Wei Zhe. It was as if the world was falling apart, causing everyone to tremble in shock. What did you say? You. This child too? You. After hearing Ce's words, Wei Min felt as if her head had been struck by a 500-kilogram object. Her body trembled violently before she came to a sudden stop. She stared fixedly at Ce and spoke incoherently. The child in her stomach is yours? You guys have already gotten a marriage certificate? Luo Zhejun finished Wei Min's sentence before she could finish. At this moment, Luo Zhejun's voice was trembling as he asked this question. He was afraid that Yun Jian or Ce would say yes. They already had a child. They even got a marriage certificate. Even if the marriage certificate wasn't from country Z, even if Yun Jian wasn't of legal age to register her marriage at the Civil Affairs Bureau in country Z. However, since Yun Jian and Ce already had a marriage certificate, it was legal. Luo Zhejun trembled all over. This was the first time he was so interested in a girl and also the first time he paid so much attention to a girl. In the end, not only was this girl married, she even had a child. Not bad, Wei Lin. You're awesome. You're even pregnant. No wonder you like eating pickled cabbage so much recently. You eat it every day for every meal. You even eat 3 times as much as me. Speaking of which, Wei Lin, if the child in your stomach is a girl, how about keeping it for me to be my future wife? I'll wait for her for 18 years. Haha. Just as the atmosphere started to subtly change, Luo Zhechen spoke in a relaxed and straightforward tone. Luo Zhechen didn't notice the subtle change in the atmosphere. He was a disobedient person who usually played games on his phone, played video games, and participated in gang fights. He was a very casual person. At that time, Yun Jian, who was called out, came back to her senses. Her expression didn't change at all, but she felt a strange feeling in her heart. She's pregnant? She was pregnant with his child? At this moment, Yun Jian's feelings were very complicated. When Yun Jian learned that she was pregnant, she was very nervous. Would she not be a good mother after the child was born? But to be honest, Yun Jian was more surprised and happy than nervous. Yun Jian's heart pounded wildly at the thought of the little life quietly growing in her stomach. Although she looked indifferent on the surface, Yun Jian's red lips, which were curled up slightly, hinted at her current mood. Hey Wei Lin, to be honest, if you really give birth to a daughter, I definitely won't marry her in this lifetime. I'll marry her when she's 18 years old. Do you agree? If you give birth to a boy, then in 6 or 7 months, will you be able to give birth to him to play with? Grabbing, pinching, and lifting. Kids are so fun. Hey, last time, I played with a baby until he cried, but you can't blame me. I only ravaged him a little. I really didn't do anything bad. Wei Lin, if you give birth to a boy, can you lend him to me to play with for 2 days? Babies are so fun. Their cheeks are tender, pink, and round. When you poke them with your fingers, they are as soft as a sponge. Luo Zhechen was very excited. When he said this, he looked at Yun Jian eagerly, waiting for Yun Jian to agree. But just as he said this, Luo Zhechen felt a gust of cold wind sweeping over from Yun Jian's side. Luo Zhechen pulled the corners of his mouth like a robot and turned his head in confusion. He could only see Si Yi's dark eyes, which were flashing with murderous intent, staring deeply at him. Her thin lips moved. Si Yi looked coldly at Luo Zhechen and said expressionlessly, "Do you want to die? Please remember the domain name of this book. .com. Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website. .com. Chapter 2383. These 2 simple words came out of Si Yi's thin lips, but they carried a cold and piercing murderous intent. After the chilling sound spread out, everyone present was suddenly shocked, and it took a long time for them to react. Especially Luo Zhechen. Luo Zhechen had only said what was on his mind, but he didn't expect to receive such a terrifying glare from Si Yi. Luo Zhechen was so frightened that he trembled. He quickly waved his hands and shook his head. No, no, no. I'm not looking for death. I'm not looking for death. Big brother, I was wrong. Just pretend I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Luo Zhechen immediately cowered. He stood behind Luo Zhejun and quickly shut his mouth. After he shut his mouth, Luo Zhechen opened his mouth and said to Yun Jian and Si Yi, "You two really look like husband and wife. You're a match made in heaven." I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. Hee. Luo Zhechen wasn't afraid of offending his big brother, Luo Zhejun. After he finished speaking, he stood behind a big tree and reached out to hug the tree. He hung his long legs on the tree. He cursed in his heart, "You immortals fighting has nothing to do with this young master." No one cared about Luo Zhechen's cowardice. At this moment, Wei Min, Luo Zhejun, and the others had already recovered from their shock. Actually, it wasn't just the current university students. In the year 2003, dating had become a trend among university students. As early as the old era of the previous century, the idea of dating was already outdated. As men and women dated and developed feelings for each other, it was inevitable that they would steal the forbidden fruit and lose control of their emotions. Of course, it was difficult for most couples to end up together in the end. Therefore, as a girl, she had to protect herself well. She couldn't be attracted by a few words from an ordinary guy who thought he was very knowledgeable. She couldn't fall in love with him and be cheated away. She had to remember that for people who were truly capable, even if they didn't brag, other people would know their true strength. Most of the time, people who kept talking about how powerful they were just empty words. They didn't have any real skills. It wasn't uncommon for college students to get pregnant. There were also some who secretly went for an abortion. Of course, Yun Jian and Ce had gotten a marriage certificate abroad to conceive a child. Moreover, from the looks of it, they didn't intend to hide the fact that they had an abortion at all. Jechen, just you wait. I'll teach you a lesson when we get home. Luo Zhejun shouted angrily after hearing Luo Jechen's words. Just as Luo Zhejun was about to speak, Wei Min, who was standing in front of Yun Jian and Ce, suddenly sneered, "Here it comes, haha." As she spoke, Wei Min glanced sideways at Yun Jian. Yun Jian had long noticed that Wei Min was different from other young ladies. Wei Min was very smart, but her intelligence was used in a bad way. Yun Jian only narrowed her eyes slightly. Just as Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, a group of middle-aged people in their 40s and 50s appeared at the other end of the school path. When Yun Jian saw that group of people, her gaze paused slightly. That group of people were the upper-class families of Puluo City. When Yun Jian first entered the Wei family, she saw those people at the banquet that Wei Xiao held for her to return to the Wei family. And the person leading them was Wei Xiao. Wei Xiao had just arrived with his wife, Wang Ruoya. He scanned the surroundings and was stunned when he didn't see the banquet that Wei Min had told them about. Min, didn't you send invitations to everyone in my name saying that the school would hold a banquet? My apologies. I've gathered everyone here today because I want to announce something to everyone. I didn't have any evidence before, so I didn't say anything. But now I've found sufficient evidence. I've already asked someone to take Wei Lin and my father's samples for a DNA test and found that Wei Lin isn't my father's biological child at all, so I want to tell everyone from the upper class that she, Wei Lin, is just a liar. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2384. Wei Min had already planned to trap Yun Jian here. However, Wei Min had never expected Yun Jian and Ce to leave so early. Hence, Wei Min had no choice but to run out and call for Yun Jian and Ce. However, Yun Jian and Ce did not listen to her at all. In the end, Wei Min had no choice but to go all out and tell Yun Jian and Ce that Yun Jian was pregnant. This was just Wei Min's way of holding Yun Jian and Ce back. Wei Xiao, Wang Ruoya, and even the masters of Puluo City's three great families, the Luo family and the Hong family, who were the fathers of Luo Zhejun and Luo Zhechen, as well as Hong Ling's father, were all standing here. Everyone was dressed in formal attire as if they were rushing to attend the banquet. However, Wei Min was just using her father's name to send out invitations to everyone. Wei Min's motive was simple. She just wanted to expose Yun Jian's true colors in front of everyone. She was not the Wei family's youngest daughter, Wei Lin. She was an imposter. After Wei Min said this, everyone present was in an uproar. Everyone instantly forgot that Wei Min had used her father's name to trick this group of people here. They all looked at Yun Jian with great interest. This was a piece of explosive news. If one wanted to ask how Wei Min had taken Yun Jian and her father's samples for a DNA test, one would have to start with the school doctor, Dr. Zhang. Dr. Zhang picked up a strand of Yun Jian's hair and took it to do a DNA test with Wei Min's father's hair. It had not been long since Wei Min received the news. After learning that Yun Jian was not the real Wei Lin, Wei Min had arranged a show to expose Yun Jian's true colors in front of all the upper-class aristocratic families. She's not the real Wei Lin? Luo Zhejun asked with widened eyes right after Wei Min's words. Brother Zhejun, I'm not framing her. Here's the evidence. Wei Min laughed coldly and took out a DNA test report from her pocket. Everyone clearly saw that the DNA test report clearly stated that Yun Jian and Wei Xiao were not close relatives. This meant that they could not be father and daughter. After taking the DNA test report, Wei Min looked at Yun Jian with a smug expression. Then, she stood in front of Yun Jian like a winner. She raised her head and stood on her tiptoes to meet Yun Jian's eyes. She sneered and said, Yun Jian, you're amazing. You actually managed to fool my father, and successfully pretended to be my sister to come to my family to enjoy a luxurious life. But there's no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. You think you're very powerful, but in fact, you can't even withstand a single blow. Tell me, who the hell are you? Are you a commoner? Street gangster? Or a beggar? It's fine if you don't want to say it. Heh, in any case, you will definitely pay for your actions. As soon as Wei Min finished speaking, she looked at Yun Jian aggressively. At this moment, Wei Xiao, who was standing at the side, suddenly took a step forward and slapped his daughter's cheek in front of everyone. Then he said in a terrified tone, "Do you want to die? How dare you talk to her like that?" Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Could it be that Wei Xiao knew that Yun Jian was not his daughter, Wei Lin, who had been separated from him for 10 years? At this moment, even Wei Xiao's wife, Wang Ruoya, stared and shook her head. "Dad? What did you say? She's an imposter. Don't tell me. Don't tell me you know about this?" Wei Min looked at Wei Xiao in disbelief and asked loudly. But just as Wei Min finished speaking, a female voice that was as pleasant as the sound of nature had already spoken first. "Of course your father knows about this." The person who spoke was Yun Jian. As soon as she said this, everyone turned to look at Yun Jian. Right in front of everyone, Yun Jian's lips curled into a red arc. A brutal murderous intent flashed across her expressionless face as if she was a murderer. A voice that struck fear into everyone's hearts rang out at the same time. Please remember the domain name of this book. .com. Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website. .com. Chapter 2385. Slaying God, the #1 on the International Secret Agent ranking. That was a person whose name was enough to make all the top international business leaders piss their pants in fear. There was a pin-drop silence around them after she said that. All the hubbub and whispers after finding out that Yun Jian was not the Wei family's youngest daughter, Wei Lin, stopped abruptly after Yun Jian said that. The quiet path, which was not wide to begin with, was eerily silent. There were dozens of people walking around, but no one made a sound earlier. Everyone kept their mouths shut at the same time. The scene was indescribably eerie. They could still vaguely hear the cheers of the fencing competition coming from the stadium not far away. However, the group of people was eerily quiet. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Yun Jian. Their eyes were wide open, and some of them even had their mouths agape. They looked as if they had been frightened by something terrifying. Especially Wei Min, who had been so aggressive earlier and wanted to dig out Yun Jian's identity and background. Wei Min's face paled at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Her cheeks, which still had some color in them, were now as pale as a sheet. What did she say? What did Wei Lin say? She was. In her circle of friends, the group of old men referred to her as their representative, calling her Slaying God, the #1 on the International Secret Agent ranking, the boss of the kosher mercenaries. She had made a name for herself in the Bloody Night incident. Her ability had swept the world, causing international bosses to tremble in fear. She was Slaying God, who killed without blinking and left no trace behind. Wei Min's body began to tremble violently at the same time. She seemed to have learned something that would make one terrified to death. She was so frightened that even her lips were trembling violently. "What did you say? You're..." Compared to Wei Min's fearful expression, Luo Zhejun's mind shook, and he had a sudden realization. He stared at Yun Jian for 2 seconds, and his jaw dropped. To Luo Zhejun, the reason why he paid so much attention to Yun Jian was because Yun Jian was very unique. Her every move and every word was different from those girls who surrounded him all day long. Luo Zhejun was not short of beauties, but Yun Jian was the only one who caught his attention. But when he found out about Yun Jian's identity, Luo Zhejun was dumbfounded. It wasn't just Luo Zhejun. Hong Ling, Luo Zhechen, Wei Zhe, Wei Xiao, Wang Ruoya, and all the people from Puluo City's upper-class society were dumbfounded. They stared at the scene in front of them, unable to return to their senses for a long time. "You're not Lin Er then. Then where did my Lin Er go? Lin Er didn't come back at all, right? Where's my Lin Er? Where did she go?" Wang Ruoya had been watching since the beginning. Now that she heard what Yun Jian said, she did not care who Yun Jian was, but where her youngest daughter, Wei Lin, had gone. Therefore, she looked at Yun Jian and asked the question with a devastated expression. "Yes. Didn't you promise me that you'll find my youngest daughter for me? Then, may I ask, have you found her?" Wei Xiao snapped out of his shock. He looked at Yun Jian, bent slightly, and asked Yunjian. Dad, it's been 10 years. Even if she's really the slaying god, I don't think she has the ability to find my biological sister. Moreover, how can we be sure that she's the real slaying god just by listening to her one-sided story? Deep down, Wei Min believed it, but she refused to admit it. All this while, Wei Min had been treating Yunjian as her rival, so she instinctively refused to believe Yunjian's identity. Of course I found her. However, just as Wei Min finished speaking, Yunjian smirked and smirked. Then, she extended a hand as if she had expected this to happen. She snapped her fingers softly. After the soft sound fell, a young girl who was much prettier than Wei Min walked out from the small forest at the side. Her facial features were similar to Wei Min's. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2386. The girl was wearing a pair of black jeans, a tight white top, and only a leather jacket. She walked out of the forest with graceful steps and gradually came to the front of everyone. Just from the girl's appearance, I can infer that this girl is definitely Wei Xiao and Wang Ruoya's biological daughter, Wei Lin. As Wei Min, who had always been against Yunjian, Wei Min's looks were average and not considered good-looking. However, her figure was all right and was completely different from her father, Wei Xiao. As for the real Wei Lin, although her features were similar to Wei Min's, Wei Lin's looks were very accurate. Her nose was slightly high, her lips were red, and her eyes were very big. Her eyelashes made her look very cute when she blinked. She was completely different from Wei Min. She was really found. A person who had been lost for 10 years was really found by Yunjian. The moment she saw the real Wei Lin appear, Wei Min's eyelids suddenly twitched. Then, her heart suddenly tightened, and an expression of fear of being discovered after doing something bad took over her entire face. You really are my Lin, my Lin. Wang Ruoya recognized her at a glance. She rushed forward almost at the same time and hugged Wei Lin. When Yunjian returned to the Wei family, although Wang Ruoya was happy, she couldn't find the feeling of kinship in Yunjian. Blood was thicker than water. This was something that outsiders couldn't imitate. At least when Wei Lin appeared, her looks could be recognized at a glance. She was the real Wei Lin without even needing to do a DNA test. Thank you. Wei Lin hugged her mother back and said to Yunjian with tears in her eyes. That, thank you, made Yunjian narrow her eyes. She didn't directly respond to Wei Lin. Instead, she said something that shocked everyone present. Perhaps you should thank that good sister of yours. If it weren't for her, you wouldn't have been lost for 10 years, and I wouldn't have had the chance to find you and send you back to the Wei family. The moment these words came out, Wei Min felt guilty. She looked at Yunjian and shouted, Nonsense! What nonsense are you talking about? I didn't. That day when I went out to play with you, you told me to stand there and wait. I waited for a long time, but you didn't appear. Later, a kind person took me away, and I've been living in that kind person's house. I always thought that you didn't do it on purpose, but not long ago, I heard. At this moment, Wei Lin spoke first after Wei Min finished speaking. At this point, Wei Lin paused for a moment before saying, I heard that you've been lying to everyone that you saw me being kidnapped by a van with your own eyes, but you clearly told me to wait for you at the same place. There was no need to say anything else. Wei Lin's words were sufficient to prove that Wei Min had deliberately abandoned the young Wei Lin. Of the way of the way of the of the way of the way of the of Wei family of the way of the way of the way of the Wei family. No, I didn't. I. Wei Min covered her ears when she was exposed for what she had done back then. Her face drained of color. Still, she suddenly lunged at Yunjian like she had gone mad, yelling and tearing at her as she did so. Ha ha ha, I did it. So what if I did it? It was you. If it wasn't for you. How could Wei Lin, that little b*tch, return to the Wei family? I'm still the most beloved daughter of my parents and the most beloved sister of my brother. You b*tch, go to hell. You're finished. You're finished. Ha ha ha. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2387. As if triggered by something, Wei Min charged at Yunjian desperately, trying to drag Yunjian down with her. It was over. She was done for. The scandal back then was exposed in front of Puyo City's upper-class society. From now on, there would be rumors of the Wei family's young miss abandoning her younger sister out of spite in Puyo City. As for her brother Jun, and he definitely wouldn't like her anymore. Wei Min was purely thinking that she would drag Yun Jian down with her even if she was done for. Hence, Wei Min did as she was told. Just as Wei Min was about to dash to Yun Jian like a madwoman and perish together with Yun Jian, Ce, who had been carefully wrapping his arm around Yun Jian's abdomen and protecting Yun Jian like she was a treasure, leaned her back against his chest and circled Yun Jian from behind to protect her as he spun her in a small circle. After he was done carefully, Ce lifted his leg and kicked Wei Min, who was about 1.6 meters tall, in the face. The force of the kick was so strong that it almost broke Wei Min's neck. Wei Min was dizzy from the kick that was filled with killing intent. She fell to the ground with a plop. She was still conscious, but her head, hands and feet were completely numb for a short period of time. Her head, in particular, was almost torn in half by Ce's merciless kick. Min, Wei Zhe, Wei Xiao, and Wang Ruoya, who witnessed the scene, cried out. Although what Wei Min had done to Wei Lin back then was already a fact, Wei Zhe, Wei Xiao, and Wang Ruoya could not bear to see Wei Min die without a corpse. Humans were not cold-blooded creatures. No one could guarantee that they would not develop feelings for someone after interacting with them for a long time. The feelings here referred to pure friendship, family, and so on. Ce's expression was terrifyingly dark. What Wei Min did just now was a test of his patience. How dare he face Xiao Jian's opponent right in front of him? In fact, Ce's kick had directly crushed Wei Min's skull. This kick was even more ruthless than killing Wei Min. Ha ha ha, you're finished. You're finished. Even if I die here today, you're finished too, ha ha ha. Who knew that Wei Min, who was lying on the ground, could no longer move her head. However, she opened and closed her mouth and said those words to Yun Jian without fear of pain. Upon hearing this, Yun Jian's eyes narrowed. She suddenly took out a folding fan from under her clothes. She broke away from Ce's embrace and walked a meter away from Wei Min. Then, she pointed the fan at Wei Min. Do you believe that I can use this fan as a dagger to seal your throat? This fan was the one that Yun Jian had taken from someone when she first met Luo Zhejun and Hong Ling when she first entered the Imperial College. She saw Hong Ling bullying someone. The fan was covered with spiritual power, which was why Yun Jian wanted it. No, please don't. Min, is my daughter too, please let her go. Let her go. Wang Ruoya knelt before Yun Jian when she heard Yun Jian. Wei Zhe and Wei Xiao begged for mercy as well. When the upper-class people who were watching the show thought that Yun Jian was a kind-hearted person since she had brought Wei Lin back. However, Yun Jian flung the fan at Wei Min. She was going to kill her. When everyone saw this, they were so frightened that their faces changed. In spite of it, a figure in a black robe flashed by the forest at the same time the fan was thrown. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and smirked at the sight, as if she knew that the figure would show up when the fan was thrown. Just as the sharp end of the fan was about to seal Wei Min's throat, Yun Jian was one step ahead of the black figure and caught the fan before retreating to Ce's side. Then, Yun Jian smirked at the black figure. You really showed up. Mysterious person. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 2388. That was right. From the beginning, Yun Jian had expected Wei Min to stop her here. Hence, Yun Jian had called Wei Lin to the scene. None of this was a coincidence. Revealing her identity as slaying God in front of everyone and flinging out the fan with spiritual power was all to lure the mysterious man out. It was worth mentioning that Yun Jian and Ce had planned all of this long ago. What she did not expect, however, was what Wei Min meant when she told her that she was pregnant. Yun Jian's admission to the Imperial College was also part of her plan. It was not a coincidence that she had obtained the fan with spiritual power. In other words, Yun Jian's admission to the Imperial College was to obtain this fan and lure the mysterious man out. This was because this fan was called a wooden fan. The wooden fan, the sandalwood box, and something else that Yun Jian and Ce were still looking for. They would be able to rule the entire deity continent. And the thousands of continents. Naturally, they would be able to take down Earth easily. This was written in the records left behind by the ruler of the deity continent since the creation of the deity continent. Who knew how many years ago? Hence, from the moment the mysterious man captured Yun Jian's younger brother and forced Yun Jian to exchange the sandalwood box for Xiao Yunju, the mysterious man had an ulterior motive. With these three things, he could easily rule the entire deity continent and the thousands of continents. The sandalwood box was one of them. The sandalwood box was one of them, and so was the wooden fan. Hence, the mysterious man had his eyes on it from the beginning. However, Yun Jian had gotten it first. Yun Jian had used the wooden fan just now to lure the mysterious man out. Tsk tisk. The mysterious man revealed a pair of deep, pitch-black eyes and stared intently at Yun Jian. He laughed arrogantly and pulled his black robe tighter around his body. Then, he stared at Yun Jian and Ce. So you've already set up an ambush. Today right here is the day you die. Yun Jian uttered, her gaze fixed on the mysterious man as she gripped the wooden fan. When Yun Jian and Ce fought against the mysterious man, both of them suffered great losses because of the mysterious man's tricks. Now that Yun Jian and Ce were at their peak, the mysterious man was definitely no match for them. Even if the mysterious man used the 100-fold potion, he might not be able to defeat Yun Jian and Ce. This was the difference between them. This was also the reason why the mysterious man had been hiding in the dark and did not dare to show up directly. Is that so? Then you are gravely mistaken, sorcerer god. The mysterious man laughed loudly and said, this black-robed man who had suddenly appeared? Wizard goddess Yun Jian. The surrounding people from Puluo City's upper class, as well as Luo Zhejun, Luo Zhechen, Hong Ling, and the others who were present, were all puzzled when they saw this scene. What's going on now? What sorcerer god? What the hell is going on? Luo Zhejun's expression could no longer be described as an expression. Just as everyone was bewildered and Yun Jian frowned, Yun Jian suddenly clutched her stomach as excruciating pain shot through her. What did you do? Yun Jian clutched her stomach, feeling like something was flowing out from her lower body. The pain made Yun Jian frown, but she held it in. Ce took a step in front of Yun Jian and frowned. Fear that had never appeared on his expressionless face. Xiao Jian, what's wrong? Ha ha ha. It's true that I can't defeat both of you if you join forces. Too bad, I've already drugged the sorcerer god before you knew she was pregnant. It's probably a problem whether or not she can keep the baby. Now that the sorcerer god is gone, you're the only one left. I've also developed the 100-fold potion that can increase my ability by 10,000 times. Do you think you're still my match? Ha ha ha. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2389. Sorcerer Goddess, Sagad. I bet you don't know how I drugged the sorcerer goddess. Come to think of it, I have to thank this idiot. Ha ha ha. The mysterious man chuckled and paused. He then pointed at Wei Min, who was lying paralyzed on the ground after her head was crushed by Ci's kick. After chuckling, the mysterious man continued. If this idiot didn't stop your school doctor from telling you about the sorcerer goddess's pregnancy, I wouldn't know where to start. Haha. This idiot really hates you, sorcerer goddess. She was the one who drugged you. The swords that you were holding in the fencing competition were all stained with these two drugs. The combination of these two drugs turned into an abortion drug. Normal people wouldn't react to it, but this pregnant woman smelled it. Haha. If a pregnant woman smelled it, she would miscarry on the spot if she exceeded a certain time limit. These two drugs were unique to thousands of continents and did not exist on Earth. In fact, Yun Jian had already smelled the two drugs, but she did not think of it that way. She had just found out that she was pregnant not long ago. It was a mistake, but she did not expect to really be pregnant this time. Not only was she pregnant, but it was also used by the mysterious man against her. Aside from Yun Jian's ignorance, Yun Jian was not omnipotent. Whether it was the sorcerer goddess or the slaying god in her past life, she did not know much about gynecology in the medical field. What Yun Jian knew was how to kill a person in the shortest time possible and where a person's Achilles heel was. Ha ha ha, I did it. There's no way you can take my brother Jun away from me. It's all your fault for coming to the Wei family as Wei Lin. Ha ha ha. Wei Min, who was paralyzed on the ground, laughed mercilessly. It was not surprising. After Yun Jian revealed that she had abandoned her biological sister and found out that Yun Jian was the slaying god, she rushed to Yun Jian and shouted at Yun Jian, "You're finished." This was because Wei Min had been used by the mysterious man to drug the swords. It was a drug that could cause Yun Jian to miscarry. She wanted to destroy Yun Jian. If anything happens to the child in her womb, all of you will be buried with me. Just as the mysterious man and Wei Min finished speaking with their strange words, a voice that was as cold as ice in the summer suddenly sounded. There wasn't the slightest bit of warmth in it. Siyi's dark eyes were so cold that it was frightening. His handsome face that looked like it was sculpted, with an aura that was enough to frighten everyone present. He placed his left hand, he placed his hand on Yun Jian's abdomen, and injected, channeling his spiritual energy, without reservation. It was into her abdomen, his, of's, his, of T, to of God goddess. Of, tessis goddesses. Goddess, that was. Luo Zhejun, Luo Zhechen, Wei Xiao, and all the other members of the upper class present turned pale when they saw this scene. They had never seen such a bizarre scene. Coupled with Siyi's, a huge wave of fear and uneasiness surrounded their hearts. At that moment, a tall and handsome figure suddenly flashed across everyone's eyes. In the next second, Ce went to the mysterious man and grabbed the man's collar. His well-defined hand with bulging veins was a testament to his fury. His rich voice rang almost simultaneously. You're right. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. 10,000 times potion? Even if you've swallowed the 10,000 times potion. As the ruler of the gods' continent, I'll tear you to pieces right here and now. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2390. Without giving the mysterious man a chance to react, Ce grabbed the mysterious man's collar with one hand and attacked him with the other. His speed was so fast that the naked eye could not capture it. Oh my god, am I seeing a ghost? What's a sorcerer god? Are these things that suddenly appear around us the enchantment from the anime? And what's that god continent? What's all this? There were already some people who were so scared that their faces turned pale. They were frightened by this illogical and unscientific thing in front of them. What was going on? What was going on in this world? Was it really normal for them to see one scene after another in front of them? Luo Zhejun, Luo Zhechen, Hong Ling, Wei Zhe, Wei Xiao, Wang Ruoya, Wei Lin, and the rest were shocked when they found out that Yun Jian was slaying God. Then, they almost fainted from the unrealistic scene before them. What's going on here? Wait, why is that person targeting all of you? Luo Zhechen looked at Yun Jian from afar and swallowed the words Wei Lin that he was about to call out. Just as Luo Zhechen finished his sentence, Ce's handsome hand had already pierced through the mysterious man's chest and crushed his heart. Ugh! The mysterious man's chest was pierced through by Ce, and there was a trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth. However, this was not a fatal injury to high-level immortal cultivators from thousands of continents. Ce did not give the mysterious man a chance to react at all. Above his handsome face, which was infuriatingly handsome, was a pair of sharp black eyes that were stained with blood at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. He pierced through the mysterious man's chest with one hand, all the way from the chest to the back of the mysterious man. His other bony hand covered the mysterious man's head at the speed of light, directly pulling the mysterious man's head out from the ground. The speed was so fast that it shocked everyone present. However, after recovering from the shock, everyone present was shocked by Ce's furious technique. The strength of a person's hand and fist could actually penetrate a person's chest and uproot a person's head. The mysterious man seemed to have lost all signs of life. His body paralyzed. Dead. Did he die just like that? Someone asked in a trembling voice. Is the mysterious man dead? How could this be? Ha ha ha. Do you think I'm dead? I've already taken the 10,000 times potion. Now, my strength is 10,000 times stronger than before. Divine Lord, oh Divine Lord, no matter how powerful you are no match for me. Moreover, you still have your wife, the witch goddess, who is about to have a miscarriage. In her current state, not only can she not help you, she might even become a burden to you. The mysterious man laughed cruelly. In that second, his chest, which had been pierced by Ce, automatically healed. The head that had been uprooted by Ce automatically healed back into the neck. 10,000 times potion. Swallowing this kind of medicine was definitely a very harmful thing to the body. However, as long as he killed the Divine Lord, no one in the entire deity continent would be his match. The mysterious man retreated more than 10 meters away in a flash. His wide black robe covered his original appearance. He stretched out his hand and laughed cruelly in an extremely disgusting tone. Although I've taken the 10,000 times potion and my strength is indeed not enough to defeat you, Divine Lord, I'll make it clear today. You, Divine Lord, will lose for sure. For a woman, you will lose for sure. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2391. But, if you give up the witch god, you may still have a chance to survive. So give up this woman. She's just a woman. As a senior immortal, what can you not have? She's just a woman. If she dies, so be it. As the mysterious man spoke, he started laughing. His laughter sounded as if he was remembering something that made him sad. As he laughed, a line of tears flowed down from the corners of his eyes, the only part of his body that was exposed under his black robe. As he laughed, a pair of dark eyes flowed out. Finally, the mysterious man stopped laughing. He stared at CE fiercely and said, "Give up your woman. You're in a high position. What can you not have? You can have a lot of women. For a woman? Is it worth it? If it weren't for a woman, would I have fallen to this point?" Yun Jian blinked from afar when she heard the frenzied words. Yun Jian covered her stomach. Although CE had injected a strong spiritual power into her, the piercing pain only eased a little. If she were an ordinary woman, she would have fainted. Although Luo Zhejun, Luo Zhechen, and the others who were standing around did not understand the mysterious man's strange words such as witch god and senior immortal, they were not stupid. The mysterious man meant that as long as CE gave up on Yun Jian, he would have a chance to survive. From this, it was not difficult to tell that except for the mysterious man himself, this place was surrounded by his subordinates. As long as the mysterious man gave the order, his subordinates would attack Yun Jian. CE was fighting against the mysterious man who had taken the 10,000 times potion, so he could not spare time to save Yun Jian. The mysterious man's subordinates would attack Yun Jian immediately. In everyone's opinion, Yun Jian must have no strength to fight back at this moment. The severe pain was enough to kill a living person. Yun Jian was already very good that she could stay awake and not fall down. If Yun Jian hadn't been pregnant and he hadn't attacked Yun Jian, with Yun Jian's strength, she would have been beaten by the mysterious man. At this moment, the mysterious man had also seen this point, so he had arranged this plan. If CE gave up on Yun Jian, then with CE's strength, it would be easy for him to escape safely. However, if he diverted his attention to protect Yun Jian, sooner or later, he would be attacked by the mysterious man and end up dead. Sinister. It was too sinister. Even Luo Zhejun and the others had realized this. Luo Zhejun couldn't help but think that if he were in CE's shoes, he would probably hesitate to give up on Yun Jian. However, just when Luo Zhejun and everyone present thought that CE would give up on Yun Jian, or even if he didn't give up, he would hesitate for a few seconds before replying to the mysterious man. CE didn't even frown for a second before his mellow voice rang out firmly. For her, it's worth it. There are indeed many women in this world, but in my eyes, she's the only one who can be called my woman. CE didn't even hesitate for a second. After the mysterious man finished his words, he suddenly responded. As he spoke, he glared at the mysterious man with bloodshot eyes. In front of everyone present, he spoke without the slightest bit of hesitation. His firm words made everyone present feel incredulous. Give up on her. If she dies, how can I live? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2392. From the moment the mysterious man spoke, CE didn't even have time to blink or hesitate. If she died, how could he continue living? Without her, he wouldn't be able to continue living. Whether it was the Sir God from 1,000 years ago or the CE from 1,000 years later, his survival, birth, growth, and even his position at the top were not for fame or status. They were all for her. The Sir God, the ruler of the God's continent, the leader of the Enhun organization. He could discard all of them because he only wanted her. CE wasn't a selfless person. He wouldn't give up her outstanding qualities just to protect his empire from falling into the hands of evil. Ce could be imperfect and not outstanding, but he couldn't lose her. Ce's mellow voice rang out. His words stunned everyone present for a moment. Luo Zhejun, in particular, was stunned. He stared with wide eyes. If the roles were reversed at this moment and he was Ce, he would definitely consider it seriously. In spite of it, Ce had never hesitated at all. Good, good, good. Since you want to be a pair of lovebirds, I'll fulfill your wish. The mysterious man laughed coldly and snapped his fingers. In less than half a second, more than 10 figures in black robes appeared in front of everyone from the mysterious man's subordinates who were hiding in the boundary. Go and deal with the sorcerer goddess. Kill her and then come and help me. The mysterious man laughed and officially entered Ce's eyes. What a pity. Although it's very touching, all of you still have to die. The mysterious man raised his voice as he spoke. Luo Zhejun and the others didn't even dare to let out a fart, let alone participate in this unbelievable event. At the same time, the men in black robes were already swarming toward Yun Jian. When Ce saw this, he turned and walked towards Yun Jian. Your opponent is me. Today, I'm going to watch my woman die in front of you. The mysterious man's figure flashed as fast as lightning. In the eyes of Luo Zhejun and the others, it was as if a person flashed past them. They couldn't even catch a trace of him. At this moment, the mysterious man's subordinates were already in front of Yun Jian. They surrounded Yun Jian. The tables had turned. The pain in her abdomen caused beads of sweat to roll down her forehead. This was witnessed by the people around her. She was finished. They were finished. Luo Zhejun and Luo Zhechen thought so. Just as everyone thought so, Yun Jian, who was bending over with her hands on her stomach, straightened her back and stood up in front of everyone's eyes. The butterfly's knife that had caused a storm in the god's continent. The original form of the saber was the god-vanquishing blade. She's going to. At this moment, Luo Zhejun, Luo Zhechen, and the mysterious man's subordinates were all stunned. However, just as everyone was wondering what Yun Jian's intention was, Yun Jian held the butterfly's knife in one hand and wiped the sweat off her forehead with the other. She revealed a red arc that shocked everyone present. Then, in front of Luo Zhejun, Hongling, Wei Zhe, and the mysterious man, she chuckled. I, the sorcerer god, led the Yulong continent to conquer thousands of continents 1,000 years ago. The meridians in my hands and feet were destroyed, and I was stabbed countless times. The pain was 10 times more unbearable than today. But in the end, I broke the heads of those people and pushed the Yulong continent to the throne of the first continent among thousands of continents. Do you think that I, the sorcerer god, can't fight just because of you and this little pain? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2393. Because I am the daughter of the Wu clan of the sorcerer tribe, the king of the Yulong mainland, the sorcerer goddess. These simple words came out of Yun Jian's mouth, but it made Luo Zhejun, Luo Zhechen, Hongling, Wei Zhe, Wei Xiao, Wang Ruoya, Wei Min, Wei Lin, and all the people from the upper class of Piluo City who were standing around feel as if they were on a battlefield. Yun Jian, who was holding a butterfly knife in front of them, was like the Grim Reaper from hell. She seemed to be stepping on thousands of corpses. Wherever the blade passed, she was the king. A young girl who seemed to be in her teens, in front of everyone present, when everyone thought that she would definitely not be able to hold on, actually straightened her back, held the blade in her hand, and fought against the 4 sides. Everyone was completely stunned at the same time. Imagine, if they were to switch roles and become Yun Jian, they would probably not even be able to stand straight under the intense pain from their abdomens. At this moment, Luo Zhejun and the dozens of people present all held their breaths. Even Wei Min, who was paralyzed on the ground after her head was smashed by Ce's kick, took a deep breath when she heard the sound. Seeing this, the mysterious man's eyes were fixed on her fiercely, and there was a flash of astonishment in his eyes. Ha ha ha, you are indeed the sorcerer goddess, the god of war who was once popular on thousands of continents and made all the strong people on thousands of continents tremble in fear. You are indeed very powerful. But it's a pity that I only have 1 bottle of the 10,000-fold potion, and I have already used it myself. However, the 100-fold potion is in the hands of my dozens of subordinates. Each of them has 1 bottle. When the mysterious man said this, Luo Zhejun and the others, who were already dumbfounded, were shocked again. Although this was the first time Luo Zejun and the others had heard of the Yulong mainland, the sorcerer goddess, and the divine emperor, these series of things were completely unrealistic and did not exist on Earth. However, after listening to the mysterious man for so long, they could more or less understand some of the ambiguous words. For example, the 10,000-fold potion and the 100-fold potion. Moreover, the mysterious man had previously mentioned that the 10,000-fold potion was a potion that could increase his strength by 10,000 times. Then, as the name suggested, the 100-fold potion could naturally increase one's strength by 100 times. It was really too sinister. He was too calculative. In Yun Jian's current state, her physical strength would be affected more or less, and the mysterious man had all his subordinates take the 100-fold potion. Then Yun Jian. Wouldn't she be done for then? At this moment, even Luo Zejun and the others could not help but feel panic and fear from the bottom of their hearts after hearing the mysterious man's words. Then what about Yun Jian? With Luo Zejun taking the lead, the group of dozens of people turned to look at Yun Jian. Luo Zejun and the others thought that they would see shock, seriousness, and fear on Yun Jian's face. However, Luo Zejun and the others found that not only did Yun Jian not show any signs of fear, but she also did not show any signs of fear. On the contrary, in front of everyone present, she tore off a few layers of clothing from her clothes and tied a tight knot around her abdomen. If one's finger accidentally pierced into a thorn, under normal circumstances, pinching the tip of one's finger when pulling out the thorn could relieve the pain. This was the same logic as what Yun Jian had done. However, no one present had thought of this at this moment. It was only when they saw Yun Jian tightening the bandage-like layers of clothing around her abdomen that they came back to their senses and made the connection. However, at this moment, they saw Yun Jian skillfully tying the bandage around her abdomen and holding the god-vanquishing blade in her hand. She looked fearlessly at the mysterious man's subordinates who had taken the 100-fold potion in front of her. Her aura did not diminish at all. At that moment, from Yun Jian's actions, Luo Zejun, Luo Zhechen, and the rest seemed to see the slaying god in Yun Jian's eyes when she was at her peak, the one who terrorized countless international bosses. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2394. Page 1/1. Just as Luo Zejun, Luo Zhechen, Hong Ling and the rest were so shocked by Yun Jian's actions that they forgot where they were, a cold snort sounded out. A mysterious man in a black robe, with only a pair of deep, dark eyes exposed. He was dressed in a black robe, and the black robe covered his entire body. What are you waiting for? Send the witch god on his way. The mysterious man bellowed, as he charged towards Si Yi's attack. At this moment, the black-robed men obeyed the order and charged towards Yun Jian. She possessed a physique that thousands of continents could only dream of. Any immortal cultivator who came within 3 meters of her would lose all their spiritual energy instantly. However, not long ago, Yun Jian knew that the mysterious man had developed a potion that could resist her special body constitution. Putting everything else aside, the mysterious man might not be as capable as Si Yi and Yun Jian, but the way he came up with the potion and the dirty tricks he pulled were enough to prove that he was a formidable character. Back in the real world, the black-robed men surrounded Yun Jian and attacked Yun Jian from different angles. This attack caused Luo Zejun and the rest to turn pale. This was basically forcing Yun Jian into a dead end. How was she going to retaliate? From the perspective of Luo Zejun and the rest, Yun Jian had already been forced into a dead end. However, it was obvious that their worries were unnecessary. Yun Jian channeled her spiritual energy into the god-slaying blade. She held the god-slaying blade in one hand and placed the other gently in front of her abdomen, as she stood there motionless. Don't tell me she doesn't know how to fight back. At this moment, someone suddenly spoke up. If it was in the past, Hong Ling, who was standing beside Luo Zejun, would have said something like, "June, you're the best. I think she can't hold on any longer, so I'll go help her." Moreover, the words that came out of their mouths were lazy. It was as if they were winners in life and could turn any situation around as long as they made a move. However, at this moment, even if Hong Ling did say so, Luo Zejun would not dare to get involved in this mess, let alone whether Hong Ling would dare to exaggerate. Just when everyone was wondering how Yun Jian was going to deal with them, Yun Jian turned sideways and stabbed her blade into the head of a black-robed man. She did not give anyone a chance to react as she turned around. The 3 black-robed men in the rear had already launched an attack on Yun Jian. With a swift turn, Yun Jian evaded the three black-robed men's aggressive attacks. At the same time, she went behind one of the black-robed men and stabbed the man's back where his heart was from his back. The God-vanquishing blade. As long as one was stabbed by the God-vanquishing blade, the black-robed man's soul would be destroyed on the spot. Yun Jian killed two of the black-robed men in one move. This made the rest of the black-robed men pause, and they didn't dare to step forward for a moment. The first two black-robed men that Yun Jian killed were the weakest among the group of black-robed men. However, just as Yun Jian was about to kill the third black-robed man, she felt a huge pain in her abdomen. She gripped her butterfly knife tightly and did not even frown. She did not leave any loopholes for the black-robed men. If she left any loopholes, she would be sending herself to eternal damnation. On the other side, Ce attacked the mysterious man expressionlessly. The mysterious man kept defending. Rather than defending, it was more accurate to say that Ce stabbed her hand into the mysterious man's internal organs. The mysterious man immediately healed and couldn't be killed. Just as the mysterious man's hands, arms, and head were about to be healed by Ce again. It's time to end this boring game. Senior Immortal, prepare to die. The mysterious man had just finished speaking and was about to heal his hands, arms, and head. Is that so? A cold voice sounded. Ce's black eyes were bloodshot and his voice was so cold that it made people tremble. His voice was so cold that it made people tremble. In the next second, he reached out and grabbed at the air. The organ that belonged to the mysterious man, which could have healed after being plucked out, was crushed in front of everyone's eyes, and turned into a pool of blood. No. How is this possible? The mysterious man's sharp voice sounded. He couldn't heal his wounds and his body was crushed by Ce's hand. However, before the mysterious man's voice fell, Ce's ruthless and cold voice sounded again. At the same time, he gathered the powerful spiritual energy that he had accumulated throughout his life and attacked the mysterious man one last time. If you had attacked me from the beginning, you would still be fine. However, you attacked her, so you must die. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2395. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. If the mysterious man had only targeted Ce would not have cared if the mysterious man was dead or alive. But of all things, he shouldn't have touched his woman. Ah! You. Sir God, you were hiding your strength. The mysterious man's head and hands were crushed by Ce, leaving only his body and legs. He screamed at Ce from the depths of his soul. Although the mysterious man's head was no longer there, he could still speak. This was because when a high-level cultivator's strength reached a certain level, even if his body was destroyed, his soul would still be there and he would not be considered dead. 1,000 years ago, Yun Jian, who was the sorcerer god, was killed by the mysterious man. Both his body and soul were destroyed and his soul should have been destroyed. Therefore, even though the mysterious man's body was destroyed by Ce, his soul could still scream. As long as a high-level cultivator's soul was not destroyed, he would at most be severely injured if his body was destroyed. When he found a new body, he could still be revived. However, it was not that easy to kill the soul of a high-level cultivator. Of course, to Ce, it was not difficult to destroy the soul of a high-level cultivator. Die! Ce, on the other hand, channeled the powerful spiritual force he had accumulated throughout his life to a single point. His cold gaze devoid of color. Just as Ce was about to launch the final attack on the mysterious man and destroy his soul completely so that the mysterious man could not be revived. Activate self-destruction. 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 Haha. Even if I die, the sorcerer god will die with me. The mysterious man ordered the remaining 3 black-robed men with a whistle that came from the depths of his soul. In the blink of an eye, only 3 of the black-robed men were left. The sorcerer god, who had led the Yulong continent from the lowest continent to the top, was not simple at all. However, the mysterious man still had a trick up his sleeve. The 3 black-robed men accepted the order. Like 3 puppets, the 3 of them poured all of their spiritual energy into their hearts. In just a few seconds, they detonated their dantian. Every immortal cultivator of the myriad of continents had a fatal trump card. By injecting all of one's spiritual energy into one's heart and detonating one's dantian, one would be able to generate energy from the depths of one's soul to self-destruct. In other words, it would explode on the spot. The three black-robed men had self-detonated right next to Yun Jian. Even if the explosion did not kill Yun Jian, the child in Yun Jian's womb would not survive. Seeing this, Ce didn't even think about it. She immediately retracted the spiritual energy she had gathered at one point to launch the final attack on the mysterious man. She then rushed towards Yun Jian. In a flash, Ce appeared in front of Yun Jian and wrapped her arms around Yun Jian's slender waist. Without any hesitation, she wrapped her arms around Yun Jian's abdomen and carefully supported Yun Jian as she flashed more than 10 meters away. This process did not take more than 3 seconds. Boom, boom, boom. 3 seconds later, an earth-shattering sound was heard. The three black-robed men exploded on the spot and turned into a pool of blood. Ah! The mysterious man peeled off his physical body on the spot and screamed in agony. Using a bit of spiritual energy, his soul abandoned his physical body and fled the place in a wretched state. The three black-robed men's self-detonation left no survivors in their wake. Luo Jiajun and the others were implicated in the explosion and died horribly. Where they were just now, other than Yun Jian, who was protected by Ci's firm chest without losing a single strand of hair, everyone else was a bloody mess. Ce used his back to withstand the pressure of the three black-robed men's self-detonation on Yun Jian. When everything returned to silence, Yun Jian squirmed out of Ci's embrace. "Xiao Jian, are you okay?" Ce wrapped his arms around Yun Jian to check if she was injured. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Yun Jian was unharmed. You're hurt?" Yun Jian's heart clenched when she looked up and saw a trail of blood at the corner of his lips under his handsome face. His back was crushed by the force of the three black-robed men's self-detonation. Even the clothes he wore were torn apart and the smooth skin on his back was now a bloody mess. Seeing her sad face, he pulled her into his arms, completely ignoring the injuries on his body, and gave her a handsome smile that made the whole world lose its luster. "Xiao Jian, I'm glad you're okay." Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2396. Page 1/1. As long as his Xiao Jian was fine, it did not matter how badly he was injured. Yun Jian's eyes moistened for some reason when she heard Ci's words. She opened her mouth but realized that she could not say anything. Yun Jian stopped talking and hugged Ce, careful not to touch his wound. I'm fine." Yun Jian had just uttered the words when beads of sweat trickled down her forehead again. Something seemed to be flowing out from her lower body. Wiping her hand away, she saw that her hand was covered in crimson blood. The mysterious man abandoned his physical body at the last moment and tore his soul apart to escape. Even for an advanced cultivator, it was no different from suicide to tear apart one's soul and escape. This was because once a person's soul and body were separated, the soul would escape. For the mysterious person, he would suffer a severe injury. Moreover, the backlash from consuming the 10,000 times potion would be more than enough for the mysterious person to suffer. It would probably take a few years for the mysterious man to struggle to even walk normally, even if he found a physical body to reside in again. There was no need to even think about it. In the next few days in Pyulyuo City, there was a major incident that shook the city and even the country. Today's report is that a bizarre incident has happened in Pyulyuo City. The remains of most of the upper-class people in Pyulyuo City were found in Emperor College. The corpses are suspected to have been blown up. It's reported that the cause of this case is unknown. The survivors are also upper-class people in Pyulyuo City. It's said that after the incident, they kept their mouths shut when the police questioned them about the case. It's suspected that they were scared out of their wits. The police are still investigating the case. Please stay tuned to China Central News broadcast. We'll be broadcasting the latest news as soon as possible. In a shopping mall that sold electrical appliances in Pyulyuo City, the televisions displayed on the counters were broadcasting the latest news. In the Kosha mercenaries far away in Country M, Snake Lizard was sitting on the sofa in the lobby of the Kosha mercenaries, staring at the television in front of her as she watched the same news. It had already been 3 months since the incident that day. Thud, thud, thud. A tall and muscular figure came through the door. For the first time, Snake Lizard stood up anxiously and looked at Tiger. leopard who walked in from outside the door, asking, "Have you found it?" Under the worried look on snake, lizard's face, tiger. Leopard shook his head truthfully. "I didn't find anything on my side." After saying that, the tiger leopard saw that the snake lizard's face had obviously darkened. After a while, a few more figures walked into the kosher mercenaries' hall. Snake. Lizard stepped forward and asked before the other party could speak, "Is there any news from your side?" The visitors were Diani, Gue Yen, Gue Lien, Qing Yu, and all the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries. "We've already confronted each other at the door." Diana spoke to Snake. Lizard on behalf of everyone else. Just as she said that, Diana paused. She furrowed her brows deeply, and finally could not bear to continue. "There's still no news from Sister Jen. In the past 3 months, Snake." Lizard had sent out all the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries to search for Yun Jian, but there were no clues at all. It was as if Yun Jian had vanished from the face of the earth. Yun Jian had always kept in touch with Snake. Lizard. Even when Yun Jian went missing for 2 years when she went to Deity Continent Holy Spring, she tried to contact Snake. Lizard. Hence. Snake. Lizard was not worried back then. However, it had been 3 months since Yun Jian had gone missing. There was not a single piece of news left for her. This had never happened before. "Sister Lizard, Sister Jen wouldn't." Qing Yu's voice trembled in disbelief. "She wouldn't." Snake. Lizard denied. Amidst the silence, Diani pondered for 2 seconds before speaking suddenly. "Although we didn't find any trace of Sister Jen, I recently received a strange piece of news. In the past month, the world's top obstetrics and gynecologists, as well as nutritionists, have all gone missing one after another. What's even more bizarre is that 50% of the world's high-end baby product stores have been ransacked." Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2397. F***CK. Who did this? How wicked. Fox could not help grumbling when he was concerned about Yun Jian's safety. Diani cut the fox off and said, "The problem now isn't to find out who did this. It's to see if this has anything to do with Sister Jen's disappearance. There's no need to rob a baby store when Sister Jen is missing, is there? The disappearance of the world's top obstetrics and gynecology specialist and nutritionist shouldn't have anything to do with Sister Jen, right?" Raccoon analyzed philosophically. "Keep investigating Sister Jen's disappearance. Remember, don't leak any information. I don't believe that anything has happened to Sister Jen. Before Sister Jen comes back, we must protect the kosher mercenaries." Snake. Lizard cut off the men's speculations and said solemnly. The men nodded in unison at Snake. Lizard's words. A few days later, however, something went wrong in the disappearance of Slaying God, the top secret agent in the international ranking, the boss of the kosher mercenaries, spread like wildfire internationally. Once the news was out, it was impossible to keep it under wraps. Needless to say, the news did not come from Snake. Lizard and her men. Despite the global uproar, Yun Jian, who was staying on an uninhabited island, did not hear a thing. It had been 3 months since the last incident. 3 months ago, Yun Jian almost had a miscarriage, but she was brought to this uninhabited island by CE without a word to recuperate. Forget about the possibility of a miscarriage. Yun Jian had gained weight from being fed by CE in the short span of 3 months. Her belly was obviously showing as well. This uninhabited island was very secluded. Normally, no one would come to this island. At the same time, Yun Jian was sunbathing under the sun. CE, on the other hand, sat beside Yun Jian and kept his hand on Yun Jian's stomach, caressing it softly every once in a while and leaning his ear against it to listen to the movements in her stomach. Until the arrival of Morrison. "Young master, 10 years' worth of premium baby products and clothes for 1 to 10 years old have been prepared," Emosen told CE with a smirk, maintaining his solemn demeanor. "Yes." CE nodded and tousled Yun Jian's hair, asking Yun Jian in an indulgent voice, "Xiao Jian, are you hungry?" Yun Jian realized that CE's favorite question was, "Are you hungry?" After asking her if she was hungry, he asked if the baby in her stomach was hungry. "I'm not hungry." Yun Jian pursed her lips and said, "Are you hungry?" As expected, CE immediately asked. Cough cough. The questions came one after another. Even Mo Sen, who was standing at the side, had calluses on his ears. After all, for Mo Sen, who was still a virgin, this topic was too ambiguous. Young master, I'll take my leave first. Have a good time with young madam. Contact me any time if you need anything. Morrison slipped away after that. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it had been almost a year since the incident. Many things happened in this 1 year. For example, Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's child was born. It was a chubby boy named Gu Xing, implying that they wished him happiness and peace for the rest of his life. On the 1-month anniversary of Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's child's birth, Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian held a banquet and invited their friends and family. Although Yun Jian and Ce were not there, Qin Yiru was not surprised. Xue Ying, Morrison, Adam, and even Lin Wei were there. Of course, Si Luo, Luo Mei, Lan Su, and Yiling were there too. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2398. Gu Xing's birth made Qin Yiru feel more like a mature woman. It was not like how she used to look 20 years older than her actual age due to overwork. Instead, she had the charm of a woman in her 40s. Yun Jian and Yun Yi were Qin Yiru's flesh and blood. Gu Xing was Qin Yiru's flesh and blood too. As for Xiao Yunju, Duan Li, Duan Ye, and the rest of the Guxian, Qin Yiru treated them the same. There was nothing wrong with that. That night, because everyone was in high spirits, they drank more than usual. Especially the innocent Si Luo, who was led by Qing Yu to drink. Xue Ying was not around at the moment. Aya, what are you afraid of? Drink, drink. We won't rest until we're drunk. Qing Yu was so happy that she hugged Si Luo's shoulder and drank in big gulps, even asking Si Luo to drink with her. After meeting with An Hun, Qing Yu was informed that Yun Jian was safe and sound. At the same time, the Kosha mercenaries were informed as well. Everything had returned to its peaceful and beautiful starting point. Sister Qing Yu, I really shouldn't drink anymore. They say that drinking makes things worse. Sister Qing Yu shouldn't drink too. Si Luo blinked his large eyes, wanting to snatch the bottle of wine that Qing Yu was drinking from. Aya, drink, drink. Little Luo Luo, are you afraid of that one at home? Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. Drink as much as you want. Qing Yu's bold look moved Si Luo. All right, I'll take a sip then. Si Luo, who was extremely innocent, was very curious about wine. After the first sip, Si Luo closed his eyes from the bitterness of the wine. His brows and cheeks scrunched up tightly. It's so bitter. Si Luo could not stand the bitterness at all. He stuck out his tongue and complained to Qing Yu. It won't be bitter after a few more sips. It's delicious. Listen to me. Come, cheers. Qing Yu clinked her glass with Si Luo's. After a while, Si Luo drank quite a bit. By the time Luo Berry found Si Luo, he was already drunk. I can drink, I want more. Si Luo was holding a wine glass in a drunken stupor as he tried to pour more wine. You can't drink anymore, Sister Qing Yu. How could you let Luo Luo drink so much? Luo Mei looked at Qing Yu and reprimanded her softly. Qing Yu, who was sitting in front of them, raised a small wine glass in her hand and poured herself a small cup of wine. She took a sip and grinned at Luo Mei. Drinking will spoil things. I'm trying to be a matchmaker. Little girl, you wouldn't understand. Actually, Qing Yu was about the same age as Luo Bailey, but her tone made Luo Bailey think that Qing Yu was a very old elder sister. When Xue Ying entered the room, the scene he saw was, I want to drink more. Don't take my wine glass, I still want to drink. Give me back my wine glass. Si Luo's cheeks were red as he grabbed the wine glass in Luo Berry's hand and refused to let go as he spoke. She was giving him wine. Xue Ying was about to explode when he saw this. He strode over to grab Si Luo's hand and brought her home without saying goodbye. After bringing Si Luo home, Xue Ying pinned her against the wall. Why are you drinking? Si Luo, who was still in a daze, became domineering again when she heard the word wine. I still want to drink. Give me wine, I want to drink. Si Luo was still tugging at her clothes as she spoke. Her body was warm from the strong alcohol, so she wanted to take off her jacket to continue drinking. However, she did not take off her jacket when she tugged at her clothes. Instead, her voluptuous breasts were exposed under her collar. Xue Ying was speechless. His beloved woman was tugging at her clothes in front of him. This scene shocked Xue Ying so much that he turned his head away immediately. However, when he did, Xue Ying's eyes met with Si Luo's cherry-red lips. They were pink and tender. "You asked for it. I'm not a decent person either." Xue Ying punched the wall and held the back of Si Luo's head as he kissed her. A night of madness. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 2399. Xue Ying had tolerated Si Luo for a long time now. Seeing Si Luo tugging at his clothes and the corners of his clothes, he could no longer hold it in. However, what made Xue Ying lose control was that Si Luo had tugged on the wrong clothes, grabbing the collar and pulling it down. Xue Ying took in the beautiful view below. It was no wonder that Xue Ying could not hold himself back and pounced on her. He had already said that he was not a good person. The next morning, the scorching sun shone through the curtains onto her face. Si Luo rolled over and rolled off the bed. The headache from drinking too much last night and the burning sensation coming from her lower body scared Si Luo into sitting up straight. Yesterday. Si Luo scratched his head as he suddenly recalled that someone seemed to have dragged him away to a hotel. Looking at the bed, there was no one there. There was a red bloodstain on the bedsheet where she had slept. Si Luo had been led astray by Qing Yu and Luo Berry, so she was no longer as innocent as before. Of course, she knew what it meant to see the bloodstain on the bed and the swelling pain coming from her lower body. Si Luo stood up absent-mindedly and ran out of the hotel room after putting on her clothes like she was escaping. She had been raped. That was Si Luo's first reaction. At Qing Yu's house, Qing Yu, Lang Mei, Gu Nianji, who had returned from the Divine Continent, and Luo Berry were playing mahjong. La la la. I finally won this time. You guys can wash my clothes for the next 2 days. You're welcome. Qing Yu put the mahjong tiles on the table and stood up. Turning around, she faced Lang Mei, Gu Nianji, and Luo Berry with her butt and made a face at them. Didn't I go easy on you this time? That's why you won. I pitied you, so I went easy on you. Let's play another round if you dare. I'll make you kneel down and call me daddy. Lang Mei stepped on the bench and hooked her pinky at Qing Yu. No, I'm not playing anymore. The Primetime Calabash Brothers is replaying. I'm going to reminisce about my childhood. You guys play on your own. Qing Yu stuck her tongue out at Lang Mei and ran back to her room. She had only taken 2 steps when someone knocked on the door of Qing Yu's suite. Who is it? Qing Yu ran to open the door in a pair of bunny slippers. Just as the door was opened, a petite and pitiful figure pounced into Qing Yu's arms. Sister Qing Yu. Si Luo threw himself into Qing Yu's arms and bawled even louder. What's wrong? What's wrong? Who bullied you? I'll beat him up for you. Qing Yu quickly patted Si Luo's back and asked. Yesterday Si Luo sobbed. She had been raped. He didn't even know who the other party was. But how could she have the nerve to say such words? It's fine. Tell me, I'll make the decision for you. If any man dares to bully you, I'll castrate him. Qing Yu flexed her muscles. Sob. I was raped. Si Luo really said it out loud. She cried even harder as she spoke. Sister Qing Yu, I don't want to see him anymore. Can you take me away? Si Luo felt sorry for Xue Ying. She was no longer clean. Ha! Qing Yu was confused. However, just as Si Luo finished speaking, someone grabbed her hand and Xue Ying's face enlarged in front of Si Luo in the next second. Si Luo was shocked to see Xue Ying, but she started crying even harder. Sob, go. 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 She had let him down. Sob, sob, sob. Just as Si Luo was crying herself out of breath, Xue Ying appeared. Please remember the domain name of this book. .com. Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website. .com. Chapter 2400. Si Luo was being forcefully embraced by Xue Ying, but she froze when she heard Xue Ying's words. Little girl, who told you to be so dishonest and seduce me when you were drunk? How can you blame me for that? Shui Ying thought that Si Luo was no longer upset after knowing that it was him who did it last night. Moreover, Shui Ying said it so righteously as if he was the one who forced Si Luo. Who would have thought that Si Luo would sob loudly after 2 seconds of silence when she heard Shui Ying's words? She even slapped Shui Ying's shoulder and shouted, "Go away! Go away! I don't want to see you again." Shui Ying was speechless. What was going on? He knew from Qing Yu that his Luo had feelings for him too. He had only made his move a little earlier yesterday, so why was she unhappy when she heard that it was him? Shui Ying was stunned but quickly recovered. He pulled Si Luo into his arms again. "All right, don't be angry anymore. I admit that I took advantage of you yesterday." He was halfway through his sentence when a mop came flying at Shui Ying. Shui Ying's gaze sharpened as he hugged Si Luo's slim waist and dodged to the side, dodging the mop that Qing Yu had thrown at him. "CK, what are you doing?" Shui Ying could speak warmly and gently to Si Luo, but he wasn't so friendly to anyone else. Shui Ying's words came out of his throat when he saw that it was Qing Yu who had attacked him. Coupled with the thick and deep scar on Shui Ying's neck, Shui Ying's appearance earlier was rather frightening. However, Qing Yu was not afraid. She pulled Si Luo from Shui Ying's arms and glared at him murderously while holding the mop. She shouted back at him, "Call me your grandfather. You can come and take my little Luo away after you reflect on your mistakes. Otherwise, don't even think about entering my house." Qing Yu did not care about how dark Shui Ying's face was as she slammed the door shut with a loud bang. The sound was so loud that the neighbors next door jumped. She even locked the door after closing it. Shui Ying was afraid that Si Luo would cry, so he did not forcefully pull him back. If Si Luo cried, it meant that he was really wrong. Qing Yu might be right. But where did he go wrong? Shui Ying flicked his short hair. Since he couldn't figure it out, he decided not to think about it anymore. He scratched his head and heard Si Luo's cries coming from the room. He didn't dare to open the door for fear that Si Luo would cry even harder. Shui Ying turned around and left. Rushing to Gu Yunjian's house, Shui Ying told Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru everything that had happened yesterday and asked them what had happened to Si Luo. After all, only Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru had more experience here. Unexpectedly, after Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru heard Shui Ying's words, Qin Yiru laughed crisply. She patted little Gu Xing's back and laughed heartily. "You guys are so stubborn. You don't know how girls think. Look at you. Auntie, don't keep me in suspense," Shui Ying asked anxiously. Qin Yiru pulled little Gu Xing's short legs forward and stopped keeping him in suspense. "You guys are so good. Girls care a lot about their first time, but you took advantage of her when she was drunk last night and she lost her first time in a daze. This means that she lost a beautiful memory in her life. How could she care about you?" Qin Yiru's words stunned Shui Ying. He had not thought of that. Therefore, Shui Ying bid farewell to Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru and rushed to Qing Yu's house. What an idiot in love. Qin Yiru could not help but shake her head and complain as she watched Shui Ying leave with his long legs. "Weren't you also an idiot in love before you married me?" Gu Junjian reached out to scratch Qin Yiru's nose and said with a smile. "How is that the same?" Qin Yiru held little Gu Xing's but and gently grabbed her hand to gesture at Gu Junjian. Gu Junjian laughed heartily again. Ring, ring, ring. Just as Gu Junjian was laughing heartily, an urgent ringtone suddenly rang. After picking up the call and chatting for a while, Gu Yunjian's brows that were still laughing earlier calmed down slightly. He turned to look at Qin Yiru and said to Qin Yiru, "I'm going out in the afternoon. Wait for me at home." Qin Yiru answered, but she did not mention the content of Gu Yunjian's call for the time being. In a certain tea house, in an empty private room, Gu Junjian sat at a large table. Gu Junjian only raised his head when the lights flashed and 6 shadows covered the light in front of him. "What can I do for you?" The people who came were none other than Chu Ning, Chu Xiongnan, Jiang Weiwei, Lu Shiyun, Feng Xiaoran, and the 6 members of Hongfan Monarch Squad. Gu Junjian raised his eyebrows, stood up, and saluted Chu Ning and the others. There were tears at the corner of his eyes, but he said solemnly to the 6 of them, "From today onwards, I'm no longer your superior. From today onwards, I will no longer be your superior officer. All of you will be reassigned to a new officer. 4 years ago, I was the one who brought you into the special forces and made you a member of the team. But unfortunately, from today onwards, I can't walk the path with you in the future. Gu Junjian of the 3rd Military Region number 311 salutes you. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2401. Gu Yunjian's words were like an atomic bomb that exploded on the spot. Chu Ning and the rest of Team Monarch, who thought they would receive a new mission, were dumbfounded. What? Officer Gu, you can't lead us anymore? It took Chu Ning a long time to recover from the shock of Gu Junjian not being able to lead Team Monarch anymore. Yes, that's an order from the higher-ups. Remember what I told you when you first joined the team. We must obey our superiors' orders with all our lives. We'll protect the country. That's the motto of the Special Forces. Gu Junjian stood respectfully in a military posture. He repeated what he had said to Chu Ning and the rest. His aura was imposing and dignified, and he did not lose any of the heroic bearing of a soldier. After saying this, Gu Junjian paused. His voice became softer, but his imposing manner did not diminish at all. This is also my last request to you as your superior officer. Although the words that came out of Gu Yunjian's mouth were extremely solemn and serious, Chu Ning and the others instantly felt tears welling up in their eyes when they heard those words. Gu Junjian had received a call not long ago that he would be retiring from the Special Forces. Unlike other armies, Gu Junjian was not young anymore. In another 2 years' time, he would be nearing his 50s. In this regard, the country gave its soldiers the best treatment. After retiring, Gu Junjian would still be able to receive an extremely high pension. However, Gu Junjian had been in the military for decades. His feelings for this position were no longer just a job for his livelihood. It was a responsibility, an obligation that could not be forsaken. And honor. Team Monarch, listen up. Just as Chu Ning, Chu Xiangnan, and the rest were speechless from Gu Yunjian's words, Lu Shiyun, the captain of Team Monarch, suddenly shouted. At that, the 5 members of Team Monarch, excluding Lu Shiyun, stood in their military stance and looked at Gu Junjian. Salute to our officer Gu. After saying that, Lu Shiyun took the lead to hold back the tears in his eyes and saluted Gu Junjian. All good things must come to an end, and there is no perfect ending in life. For example, Gu Yunjian's retirement was a good thing for Gu Junjian, but it was also a pity. The retired Gu Junjian could enjoy the rest of his life with his pension, but unfortunately, he had to leave the army that he had spent half his life in. A few days had passed since that incident, and Si Luo had already forgiven Xue Ying. Xue Ying took the risk of being beaten up by Lin Wei, Adam, and Mo Sen to leave his position in Anhun and take Si Luo on a holiday. At this moment, in Qing Yu's house. Hey you guys, all of you are in pairs. I'm the only one who's alone. In the future, don't show off in front of me for no reason. Otherwise I will. Gu Nianji was holding an electric mosquito swatter. She swung it a few times and gestured at Qing Yu, Lang Mei, and Luo Mei. What will you do? Qing Yu bumped her fists and glanced at Gu Nianji fiercely. I'll go outside and let you guys have the room. Gu Nianji was deflated. She pouted and twisted her body to admit defeat. Look at you. Qing Yu glanced at Gu Nianji in disdain. Just as Gu Nianji curled up like a deflated balloon on the sofa, the doorbell suddenly rang from outside the door. I'll go open the door. Luo Mei ran to open the door diligently. Lan Su had left the child with Adam this afternoon, saying that she wanted to go out and play with them. Luo Mei was excited. The moment she opened the door, it was not Lan Su in plain clothes that greeted her, but a clean and handsome young man. God Li Nong. Seeing that it was an unfamiliar girl who opened the door, Li Nong smiled politely and asked directly, Hello. May I know if Gu Nianji lives here? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. You're not allowed to make the slightest mistake here. Otherwise, you can pack up and leave. Do you hear me? Lu Cheng was an advanced Special Forces soldier who had returned from overseas. His capabilities were impressive, and his military rank was higher than Gu Yunjian's. On this point, Lu Cheng's sense of superiority was already very obvious. Yes, sir. The 6 members of Team Monarch could only respond to Lu Cheng. Also, I've brought back 2 teams of Special Forces soldiers who are similar to your age from overseas. Since you're still young, all 3 teams will fight side by side in the future. I'll send you to complete missions that aren't difficult. Also, Team Monarch's capabilities should be the weakest among the 3 teams. I hope you'll work harder in the future. The other 2 teams graduated from top international Special Forces schools while you're just students studying in domestic military schools. I hope you know who's stronger and who's weaker. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2403. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Lu Cheng had returned from overseas. Based on his past achievements, he was assigned to lead the 6 members of Team Monarch. It had been a long time since Yun Jian participated in a mission with Team Monarch. Team Monarch was well known in Country Z, but Lu Cheng, who had returned from overseas, knew nothing about them. What Lu Cheng did not know was that even without Yun Jian, the 6 members of Team Monarch, including Chu Ning, were young but capable and experienced enough to complete the mission on their own without working with any other team. Moreover, their efficiency in completing missions was impressive. They had not even competed yet, and the new commanding officer Lu Cheng had already belittled them to be inferior to the other 2 teams who had returned from overseas like Lu Cheng. Chu Ning was the first to lose her cool, standing up to Lu Cheng. Commanding Officer Lu, you can't deny Team Monarch's capability like this. We don't deny that the other 2 teams who returned from overseas are strong, but Team Monarch isn't weak either. Moreover, we haven't even competed with the other 2 teams you're talking about. How would we know who's stronger? Chu Ning had always been a straightforward person and would not play any tricks. She would always speak her mind and did not know how to beat around the bush. Chu Ning. Captain Lu Shiyun was standing beside her. He lowered his voice and called out to Chu Ning. He wanted Chu Ning to shut up so that she would not provoke the new officer. Sometimes, the best way to fight back when one was treated unfairly was through strength. Chu Ning realized that she had acted rashly at Lu Shiyun's words. Chu Ning lowered her head and kept quiet. She thought that most commanding officers would turn a deaf ear to this and let bygones be bygones. Lu Cheng's eyes glinted sharply at Chu Ning's words. I heard that Slashing God is the strongest in Team Monarch? Lu Cheng had read through Team Monarch's information, so he knew. Yes, Lu Shiyun answered. Where's she? As a member of Team Monarch, isn't she here today? Lu Cheng asked. Jen. Slashing God only comes to help when Team Monarch is out on a mission, Lu Shiyun blinked and said with a hint of concealment. It had been a long time since Yun Jian went on a mission with the 6 members of Team Monarch. When it was in Gu Yunjian's hands, this was allowed. Gu Yunjian's request was very simple. When they were out on a mission, they were not allowed to let down their guard at all. Normally, he would be very hard-working during training. Other than that, he would not interfere with other trivial matters. However, Lu Cheng was the exact opposite. Lu Cheng's requirement was that every member had to be present every day, not a single minute less. Chapter 2404. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Haitang was Jiang Weiwei's code name. Lu Cheng never talked about real names, only code names. Unless they were close to Lu Cheng. Jiang Weiwei did not expect Lu Cheng to be her opponent. After she was subdued, she struggled to no avail. The 6 members of Team Monarch were not that angry at first, but after hearing Lu Cheng's actions and words, their rage reached its peak. However, since Lu Cheng was their current commanding officer, none of them dared to do anything further. After all, Lu Cheng was a commanding officer and was already 38 years old. He had been recruited into Interpol and was later sent to the Special Forces training base for 10 years of secret training. It was normal that Jiang Weiwei was no match for him. Is there anyone else who disagrees with my arrangement? Lu Cheng grabbed Jiang Weiwei's shoulder with one hand and both her wrists with the other. He pinned Jiang Weiwei to the ground like a police officer arresting a criminal. Before Jiang Weiwei could react, Lu Cheng had already attacked her. Moreover, Lu Cheng pinned Jiang Weiwei to the ground in one go. He did not control his strength at all. Jiang Weiwei's shoulder was in so much pain that she could not breathe. Seeing Jiang Weiwei's pained expression, as the captain, Lu Shiyun could only submit for the time being. No. That was against his will. That's good. Lu Cheng let go of Jiang Weiwei and said a few more words before leaving Team Monarch to practice on their own. A few days later, Chu Ning and the others sat paralyzed in a coffee shop. I'm so tired. I miss the time when Yun Jian was around. Chu Ning wiped her sweat and sighed. Tiredness was caused by the training. In fact, they did not train much under Lu Cheng. However, the reason why they were so tired was because Lu Shiyun and the others were pressuring themselves. They were not convinced. They wanted to strengthen themselves. Order a cup of coffee. We'll continue training after that, Lu Shiyun said. Everyone agreed. Then, Chu Ning saw a newspaper on the table. Although she flipped a page, a huge headline caught her attention. She could not help but read it aloud. Breaking news! The female doctor with the highest delivery success rate in the world, Lin Nada, has gone missing for days. What are you reading? Chu Xiongnan poked his head over to read the newspaper when he heard that. Chu Ning had finished reading the reporter's report. Oh my god! This Lin Nada is the world's best in obstetrics and gynecology. She seems to have been kidnapped. The kidnapper. Is the kidnapper out of his mind? How dare he kidnap a female doctor in the department? On and on the deserted island, uninhabited, Chu Ning and the others. Inside a simple yet clean house. See. Calm, Li. Translation Translation Jiang her she was translation as her translation was translation. His translation is Li. Translation it is translation for 9 translation. In pregnant over women. Was. She was. Was that it in Lu her? Just like now, when he kissed her, he had to avoid touching her stomach. As the kiss went on, Si's lips moved to Yun Jian's neck and trailed down. Xiao Jian. He called softly. It had been 2 months since Ce dared touch Yun Jian. As her stomach grew bigger, he did not even dare to press himself against Yun Jian. Mn, Yun Jian hummed in response to Ce, allowing him to do whatever he wanted. However, just as Ce was about to kiss Yun Jian's neck, she suddenly felt something sticky flowing out from her lower body and her stomach throbbed in pain. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2405. Page 1/1. It hurts. Yun Jian suddenly held her hand on her belly that was as big as a ball. Is she about to give birth? Xiao Jian, I'm going to be a father? Ce was delighted. In the next second, Ce's cries for help resounded throughout the entire island. Another 5 months passed. It was winter now. It had been exactly a year since the incident at the Imperial College. It was winter again, and the end of the year was approaching. There was only 1 month left before the 2004 New Year. It was still very cold in winter. The 6 members of Team Monarch had spent 5 months under Lu Cheng's leadership. These 5 months were very difficult for the 6 members of Team Monarch. At the same time, the 6 members of Team Monarch had met up with the other 2 teams. Today, Lu Cheng gathered the people from the 3 teams together. You will set off tomorrow. You will complete the first cooperative mission together. The difficulty of this mission is a little high, but I believe that with the T-Rex squad and the most awesome squad leading the way, this mission will definitely not be a problem. Lu Cheng said to the members of the 3 teams. Chief Lu, are you saying that you want us, Team Monarch, to provide cover? Lu Cheng had just finished when even Lu Shiyun, who had always been calm, blurted out in agitation. The 3 teams were all similar in age and had joined the army at about the same time. Lu Cheng wanted Team Monarch's T-Rex squad and the most awesome squad to take the lead. In that case, Team Monarch could only act as cover. As long as the mission was successful, all the glory would be taken away by the members of the Tyrannosaurus squad and the most awesome squad. Team Monarch, on the other hand, would at most receive verbal praise from their superiors. In short, the commander of a team was very important. Yes, is there a problem? After Lu Cheng heard Lu Shiyun's words, he spoke as if nothing had happened. Lu Shiyun clenched his fists tightly in an instant. Even Lu Shiyun, who had always been calm, couldn't take it anymore. Team Monarch used to be trained in domestic military schools. It's your honor to serve as a cover for overseas talents like us. Be content. The captain of the most awesome team was called Zhu Ao. The second half of his name sounded like a foreigner's name. That was because Zhu Ao was born in a family where his parents hoped that he would become a student who had returned from overseas. Now that Zhu Ao had lived up to everyone's expectations, he was naturally pleased with himself. What are you talking about? Jiang Weiwei was furious when she heard Zhu Ao's words. I say, Team Monarch hasn't been to any international military school or special forces training, right? Being able to cover for us is already an honor for you. What? Am I not being detailed enough? When Zhu Ao heard this, he spoke again. Because of Lu Cheng's cover, Zhu Ao and the other members of the strongest team were very cocky. However, the members of T-Rex Squad were very friendly to Team Monarch. Hence, the leader of T-Rex Squad stepped forward to speak to Team Monarch. Zhu Ao, don't be too. What about me? This is the truth. Zhu Ao raised his head and shouted. With this back and forth, they somehow ended up quarreling. As they quarreled, Zhu Ao wanted to use the opportunity to wield the knife, but his hand slipped and the knife flew far away. Stop quarreling. Aren't you satisfied with my arrangement? Whoever isn't, come and defeat me. Who dares? Who dares? Lu Cheng suddenly shouted when he saw this. However, everyone knew that Lu Cheng was targeting Team Monarch. Me. Just when everyone lowered their heads and no one dared to make a sound, a beautiful female voice that sounded like the sound of nature suddenly rang out. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2406. Page 1/1. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Lu Cheng was stunned by the sudden appearance of the stunning girl. The girl was walking towards them. Every step she took, the aura she exuded was enough to make everyone gasp. It was as if the person walking towards them was not one of his subordinates, but his commanding officer, his superior. From the girl, Lu Cheng seemed to have seen an aura that not even the overseas advanced special forces soldiers with outstanding military exploits had. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and looked at Yun Jian in the eye. Yun Jian looked delicate and pretty. At 19 years old, Yun Jian was even more alluring than before. Her breasts were even more voluptuous, and her hips were just right. Coupled with the powerful aura she exuded from her every movement. She was every man's dream. Is this little beauty the slashing god of Team Monarch? Does she have a boyfriend? Zhu Ao's eyes widened when he saw Yun Jian. He whistled and stared blankly at Yun Jian as she walked towards him. Zhu Ao was 1.8 meters tall. He was not short and was tall and handsome. At least overseas, he was a hot commodity in the eyes of girls. Especially with his height and his identity as a special forces soldier, he was the ideal man for girls. When Zhu Ao's words fell, no one paid him any attention. Yun Jian was already standing in front of everyone. At 19 years old, she had already given birth to a child. Judging from her appearance alone, she had taken better care of her body than before. Her skin was smooth and supple, and her face was full of collagen. She was like a maiden who had just stepped out of her house, ignorant of the world and its evils. However, such a beautiful girl was holding a small knife that Zhu Ao had accidentally flung away earlier. She nimbly caught the knife in her hand and stood in front of everyone. That pair of beautiful eyes that were as clear as still water turned to look at Lu Cheng. Her beautiful eyes looked at Lu Cheng and she sneered. "You're the new officer?" These imposing words sounded like a superior asking a subordinate a question. Lu Cheng didn't know why, but when he heard Yun Jian's words, he suddenly shivered. Then, he forced himself to look into Yun Jian's eyes. Yes. He didn't mind that Yun Jian didn't call him sir. "Let's just go," Yun Jian suddenly said. "What?" Lu Cheng was stunned. "Defeat me or shut up." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and glared fiercely at Lu Cheng. How was this the tone of a subordinate speaking to a superior? After hearing this, everyone present was dumbfounded. Just when everyone thought that with Lu Cheng's temper, he would really hit Yun Jian, Lu Cheng suddenly changed his words. "Hit what? Everyone, return to your positions. Tomorrow, They would set off to complete the mission. Go train by yourself. After saying that, Lu Cheng left. It was only after Lu Cheng was gone that Chu Ning and the others came to surround Yun Jian. Ah, Yun Jian, you're finally back. Chu Ning hugged Yun Jian tightly. Yun Jian. You don't even know how overboard this sir is. Chu Ning and the 6 members of Team Monarch started talking at the same time. Seeing this, the members of the most awesome squad did not stir up any trouble and wanted to leave. When they were leaving, Yun Jian brushed the saber in her hand across Zhu Ao's cheek and threw it to the ground. She said to him, "Your saber is dirty, take it back." The members of the most awesome squad were indignant, but in the end, it was Zhu Ao who stopped them. "Humph, she's just a girl, you don't make a difference. Do you think Team Monarch can make a comeback with you? Just wait and see." A girl from the most awesome squad spat at Yun Jian, then turned and left with the most awesome squad. After the training ended, Yun Jian left the place. Just as she walked out of the military area, she saw a Lamborghini sports car parked not far away. Beside the car stood a man who was so handsome that even gods would be angered. The man was holding Mama E. Mama Iya. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2407. The handsome man was holding a child wearing a little red hat in his hand. The child was only 5 months old, but she could already babble. Normal children would need at least 8 to 9 months to learn how to speak. Some would even need a year before they could babble and pronounce words that were not accurate. This child could already babble and call out "Mama" when she was only 5 months old. If some parents whose children learned how to speak very late saw this, they would probably faint from envy. Of course, this was just a joke. Mama ya mama. The child was wearing a very cute little red hat. His face was rosy and tender. Just by looking at him from afar, his tiny hands, which were only the size of 2 adult fingers, were waving up and down. He was babbling and yelling some words that were not very clear. When she saw Yun Jian, the cute child habitually extended her hand towards Yun Jian and spoke in a soft voice. Because she was happy, the child sat on Si Yi's hand and excitedly lifted her butt up and down. Her body swayed along with her hand. The moment she saw the child, Yun Jian's gaze softened. She smiled slightly and walked over to Si Yi in a few steps. "Mama, mama." The child jumped and reached out towards Yun Jian. She even revealed her toothless mouth and her 2 dimples were very obvious. She had a pink and tender face and her facial features were very delicate and beautiful. Just by looking at her, one could tell that the child looked very similar to Yun Jian. It was a girl. "Mama, mama Yi." Just as Yun Jian reached out her hand, the child, who was sitting on Si Yi's hand, leaned her body forward and threw her head towards Yun Jian. Yun Jian smoothly took the child from Si Yi's arms. The child had not been named. Yun Jian thought back to the 1 year that she had spent on the uninhabited island. Ever since she found out that she was pregnant and almost had a miscarriage due to a mysterious person's plot, Si Yi had brought her to an uninhabited island and used up 500 years of his spiritual power to protect her and their child. In the end, Si Yi kept her in captivity on an uninhabited island and even had to carry her up the stairs. It had to be said that Yun Jian was even fatter than a year ago. However, the fat wasn't in her fat, but in her chest. Her cleavage was so plump that it could almost burst her top. It was so big that Si Yi couldn't even grasp it with one hand. Cough. Later on, she gave birth to a child. It was also a smooth birth. In the past 5 months, Si Yi had refused to let her get up after giving birth. He had even been the one to serve her tea. She said that she had to go through confinement. After giving birth, she had to go through confinement and rest for a long time. If she didn't recuperate well, her body would collapse. In the past year, Si Yi had almost memorized all the information on obstetrics and gynecology. Chapter 2408. Page 1/1. The little boy looked pitiful as he was carried into the car by Si Yi and thrown into the back seat of the Lamborghini. "Be gentle, he'll hurt," Yun Jian hurriedly said when she saw this. "He won't die." Si Yi threw the innocent-looking boy into the narrow back seat. He walked over and carefully took the little girl from Yun Jian's arms before getting into the driver's seat. Yun Jian pursed her red lips. Seeing that the little boy was playing with his clothes without crying or making a fuss after being thrown into the back seat of the Lamborghini by Ce, Yunjian heaved a sigh of relief. She walked around the car to the front passenger seat and got in. Ce carefully placed the little girl on his lap. He turned his head and carefully fastened Yunjian's seatbelt before handing the little girl over to Yunjian. Yunjian hugged the little girl tenderly in her arms. The little boy in the back seat kept playing with his clothes. Sometimes, he would even put his fingers in his mouth and suck on them. After sucking his fingers for a while, Yunjian turned her body and reached out to pat the little boy's finger away. She said softly, "Dirty. Dregs, dregs." The little boy was very smart. After hearing Yunjian's words, he mimicked Yunjian's pronunciation and said a few words. Then, the little boy reached out and stuffed his little finger into his mouth again. He sucked on it twice and made a tsk sound. When Yunjian saw this, she wanted to pull the little boy's hand out of his mouth. However, she did not expect the little boy to reach out his other hand and mimic how Yunjian had slapped his hand away. He reached out and slapped his own hand away. Then, he made a sound that was not very accurate. Dregs. Yunjian was speechless. From the rearview mirror, he saw the little boy's obedient behavior and the little girl in Yunjian's arms. He could not get enough of her no matter how much he loved her. Ce's handsome smile was enough to make heaven and earth lose its luster. In the next second, he stepped on the accelerator. The Lamborghini sped off and disappeared from the entrance of the military base. Gu Yunjian's house. Adam and Mo Sen were assigned a mission by Ce. It was a very noble mission with a very dangerous mission. Oh my God! How are we going to name it? It's already been 5 months and we still haven't come up with a name. Seriously. Young master, isn't this making things difficult for us? You might as well be like my stinky brat and give him a random name. What kind of name can we come up with? Adam was bored. The 5 Births Baby Naming Book of the 5 Birth Baby Names Book. As 5 Baby Names as 5 Babies 5 Birthdays as Baby Names Book. He had been flipping through the books for the past 2 days. Young master has given us a mission. Less talk, more action. We must complete it. Mo Sen said to Adam methodically. These words caused Adam to roll his eyes towards the sky once again. Then, he reached out and flipped through the pile of books in boredom. Good, good, good. Give it a name, give it a name. I cut some oranges. They're sweet and delicious. Eat some first before you continue. At this moment, Luo Berry walked over from the kitchen with a plate of fruits. Okay. Adam was almost dazzled by the pile of books. When he saw Luo Berry coming out with fruits, he threw the books aside and ate the fruits first. Mo Sen was still flipping through the books. Adam, who had taken a bite of the oranges, suddenly said, "Oh right, I thought of a very nice and domineering name." Mo Sen looked up at him. Adam said confidently, "A girl's name will be C the most awesome, and a boy's name will be C Woody." Top reading website, M. Chapter 2409. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Hearing Adam's words. Mo Sen was speechless. Rockberry was sitting beside Mo Senator. She was peeking at Mo Sen from the corner of her eyes as she stuffed an orange into her mouth and chewed it lightly. Hearing Adam's words, Rockberry suddenly reacted. Her brain was working faster than her hands. Before she could turn her head, she spat out the orange onto Mo Sen's trousers. Rockberry's face turned red as she quickly took the orange back from Mo Sen's trousers. I accidentally stumbled upon a certain secret location. Rockberry's face was almost as red as an apple. She lowered her head and could not help but laugh at the name Adam gave her. She was afraid that Mo Sen would notice her awkwardness, so she lowered her head and tried her best not to let Mo Sen notice her awkward action. Her fair and glossy hand was also holding the orange that she had accidentally spat out from her mouth. She was secretly retracting her hand. However, just as Luo Mei's hand was about to retract, a glossy hand grabbed her wrist before she could do so. Did he notice the awkwardness just now? Rockberry's face turned as red as a strawberry. Unexpectedly, Mo Sen reached out and took the cut orange that Luo Berry had taken a bite out of. Then he stuffed it into his mouth. That's what I ate. Rockberry was stunned. When she realized that Emo-san had eaten something that she had eaten, her face turned as red as an apple. Ha ha ha. How is it? How's the name I gave you? Is it domineering enough? Look at how excited the two of you are. Am I so talented in giving names? Adam did not know how terrible the name he gave was. He stepped on the bench and looked at Rockberry and Emo-san confidently. After 2 seconds of silence, Adam said calmly, "When young master and young mistress come back, I'll tell them the name. You can go pack up your clothes." Emo-san raised his eyes and looked at Adam calmly as usual. What? When Adam heard Emo-san's words, he stared blankly. A cloud of suspicion flashed before his eyes. Pack his clothes? What for? Young master will tell you what to do. Emo-san glared at Adam, then lowered his head and continued reading the information in his hands. The flashy Lamborghini sports car was parked at the entrance of a baby training center in Longmen City. In order to avoid being recognized by acquaintances and causing unnecessary trouble, Yoon Jian deliberately wore a pair of sunglasses. The pair of black sunglasses on Yoon Jian's face covered her eyes, but it couldn't hide her exposed tender skin. Perhaps it was because she had given birth to a child, but Yoon Jian's skin was getting more and more tender. It was so tender that water could be squeezed out. Even when standing next to the little girl and the little fellow, Yoon Jian's skin was not inferior in the slightest. At that moment, Yoon Jian was carrying the little girl while Ce was carrying the little girl. The two of them walked through the entrance of the infant training center. When they arrived at the entrance of the infant training class, Ce handed the little boy to Yoon Jian. Yoon Jian held them in each arm. "I'll wait for you in the car," Ce said with a gentle glance at Yoon Jian. Yoon Jian nodded and carried the two children into the infant training class. This was the place where mothers were taught how to take care of their children, such as the breathing exercises for childbirth, bathing the babies, massage classes, and so on. Adult males were not allowed to enter during the classes, because they would also teach her how to breastfeed the child properly. It was Yoon Jian's first time bringing the two children. Just as they entered the infant training center, a mother carrying a naughty boy came over to greet Yoon Jian. "Hello, are you here alone too? Let's keep each other company?" Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 24:10. Looking around the infant training class, the mothers were basically in groups of 2 or 3. In other words, the housewives who could afford to attend the infant training class and had the time were generally above 30 years old. Looking around the infant training class, there were very few mothers above 25 years old. This did not mean that Yoon Jian was the only one who was born early. It was just that before the age of 25, the average married couple would definitely not be able to afford to attend the infant training class even if they had children. After the age of 30, they would realize the importance of taking good care of their bodies after giving birth. In addition, their families already had enough money to spend, so naturally, they would sign up for the infant training class to better understand how to take care of their children. In fact, the people in the countryside relied on the experience of raising children passed on by the previous generation, and then brought up their children carelessly. Some women in the city who had realized the importance of taking good care of their bodies after giving birth early would come here to learn. Moreover, generally above the age of 30, their friends and classmates of the same age would generally have children. Therefore, they could generally go to the infant training class in groups of 3 or 5 to learn together. On the other hand, Yoon Jian, the young mother who was carrying a naughty boy, came alone. And this young mother who greeted Yoon Jian was not old. In fact, her real age was only 23 years old. Only 4 years older than Yoon Jian. "Well, okay." Yoon Jian nodded after hearing the young mother's words, and then walked inside with the two children in her arms. The little girl had been holding Yoon Jian's clothes tightly, looking around with a face of fear. The little fellow, on the other hand, looked around indifferently. The moment the little girl turned her head away, he reached out and gently poked his sister's cheek. So smooth and tender. The little boy was the elder brother, and the little girl was the younger sister. When the two were born, the little boy was squeezed out of the mother's womb before the little girl, so he became the elder brother. Yoon Jian agreed to the young mother's request for no other reason than that she could learn how to kill people at the fastest speed. She could kill people in one move without leaving any trace. Her decisiveness in killing was popular all over the world. However, she did not know how to change the children's diapers and clothes at all. Therefore, he needed someone to teach him step by step. After hearing Yun Jian's words, the young mother was pleasantly surprised and said, "That's great." Then she hugged her two children tightly and said to Yun Jian, "My child's name is Wang Dongdong. He's already 9 months old. My name is Wang Xiaolin. I'm a single mother. I'm raising my own child. What about you? What's your name? Also, the 2 babies in your arms are so cute. They're not like my baby, who looks like a monkey." Wang Xiaolin gently poked the little fellow and the little girl's cheeks lovingly, and then complained that her children were ugly. "Yun Jian, they don't have names yet," Yun Jian said briefly. "Is that so? Haha, I see that you're still very young. You gave birth at such a young age, but your figure hasn't changed at all after giving birth. Before I gave birth to the baby, I weighed about 90 kilograms. Now, I'm already 120 kilograms. Wang Xiaolan was the kind of person who liked to talk, so she quickly talked to Yun Jian. Yun Jian had been listening all the time. The infant training class was actually a teacher holding a fake baby on the stage to demonstrate some simple movements to everyone, and then let the mothers follow. When Yun Jian changed the diapers for the little fellow and the little girl, the diapers were changed upside down. In the end, Wang Xiaolin helped Yun Jian change and then carefully guided Yun Jian. Yun Jian also learned to change the diapers for the little fellow. But halfway through, the little fellow suddenly kicked Yun Jian's sunglasses uncomfortably. This kick kicked off Yun Jian's sunglasses. When Yun Jian just reached out to put the sunglasses back, a figure suddenly sounded, "It's really you. I thought you looked familiar just now, but I didn't expect it to be you." Hearing this voice, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and turned her head. But she happened to see that the person who spoke was none other than the girl from the Most Awesome team who told Yun Jian to wait and see in the military region just now. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2411. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. The girl was Dong Lijia, a member of the Most Awesome team. When Zhu Ao stopped the Most Awesome squad from attacking Yun Jian in the military zone just now, Dong Lijia had told Yun Jian, "She's just a girl. You don't make a difference. Do you think Team Monarch can make a comeback with you? Just wait and see." Dong Lijia's ability ranking in the Most Awesome team was rather high. Of course, Dong Lijia was not in the infant training class. There was more than one class in the infant training base. Dong Lijia wanted to check on her grandson's training but did not expect to see Yun Jian at the staircase. Instead of seeing Yun Jian, it was more accurate to say that she saw Yun Jian's clothes and found them familiar, so she followed her. Dong Lijia had been standing at the entrance of the infant training class. When she saw Yun Jian's sunglasses being kicked off by the little one to reveal her face, Dong Lijia walked over after confirming that it was Yun Jian. "I didn't expect Team Monarch/God to already have a child?" Dong Lijia was enraged at the thought of her team leader, Zhu Ao, meeting Yun Jian for the first time. She gritted her teeth as she spoke. Team Monarch/God? Those around them were housewives. They were all stunned when they heard what Dong Lijia said to Yun Jian. What was going on? You're still playing computer games? Both of you look pretty young. It's better to play less games in the future. It's bad for your health. Wang Xiaolan spoke up after a pause at Dong Lijia's words. Yun Jian and Dong Lijia were stunned when they heard what Wang Xiaolan said. Wang Xiaolan thought Team Monarch and Slashing God were characters in computer games. Of course, even if Wang Xiaolan was wrong, Yun Jian and Dong Lijia would not explain. For tomorrow's mission, I'd advise Team Monarch to cover for us, or I'll tell everyone that you gave birth in secret. Dong Lijia ignored Wang Xiaolan. She thought that she had found Yun Jian's weakness and said coldly to Yun Jian. After saying this, Dong Lijia did not intend to continue the conversation with Yun Jian. She grabbed her black handbag and swaggered out. Have you guys been poisoned by the game? Yun Jian, let me tell you, one of my relative's children only knew how to play games all day because he had a desktop computer installed. In the end, he played until his entire body was paralyzed. It's better to play less computer games in the future. Wang Xiaolan said this for Yun Jian's sake. She also thought that Yun Jian and Dong Lijia's words were because they were too addicted to the game. After all, in 2004, The rich had already started to popularize computers. Once the computer game was released, it became popular because everyone was interested in this magical game. Yun Jian nodded, not intending to explain to Wang Xiaolan. However, just as Yun Jian was about to continue learning how to change diapers, Dong Lijie, who had just left, came back. I forgot to tell you, slashing god. No matter how glorious your past achievements were, our most awesome team will make you admit defeat. We who have returned from overseas are different from you. Dong Lijie ran back just to say this. After saying this, she glanced sideways at the little fellow and the little girl. Seeing that the little fellow and the little girl were very delicate and beautiful, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous. When she turned, Dong Lijie even gave the little guy and the little girl a fierce grin. Shoo shoo shoo. But just as Dong Lijie turned her head to glare at the little guy fiercely, the little guy swayed his body and looked at Dong Lijie angrily, as if he knew that Dong Lijie was bullying his mama. He peed 3 times more than usual directly on Dong Lijie's face. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 24:12. The power of the boy's urine was as fierce as a rocket. It sprayed all over Dong Lijie's face, driving Dong Lijie to the brink of madness. Ah! Ah! The worst thing was that when Dong Lijie's face was suddenly sprayed with urine, she instinctively opened her mouth and screamed because she could not react in time. This heaven-defying boy's urine not only sprayed on Dong Lijie's face but also flowed into Dong Lijie's mouth when she screamed. After he finished urinating, the little guy shook his body and giggled with a comfortable expression. The little girl and the little guy were both placed on the floor covered with a blanket. Now that she saw Dong Lijie's sorry state, the little girl seemed to know that this matter was very funny. She imitated the adults and clapped her hands with her soft feet. She couldn't even straighten her feet and clapped her hands together. She even let out a giggle. In the end, the culprit who had peed all over Dong Lijie's face seemed to be amused by the little girl. The 2 children lay on the blanket like turtles that had been turned over, swaying and laughing. They looked so adorable that Yun Jian's heart almost melted. Ah! He actually. Dong Lijie ran to the side as if she had gone mad. She put her hand over her mouth and dug out the urine in her mouth to vomit. It's okay. He's only a few months old. Boy's urine is very pure. Some places even use boy's urine to cook eggs. And the eggs taste so good. Quick, get a tissue and wipe it. At this moment, the infant training class teacher came over and handed a stack of napkins to Dong Lijie kindly. Dong Lijie reached into her mouth and dug. Seeing that she could not dig out the boy's urine that had accidentally flowed into her mouth, she vomited until her eyes were red and watery. She slapped the napkins away from the infant training class teacher and left Yun Jian a harsh word before turning to leave while vomiting. Just you wait. I'll make Team Monarch and you. You'll no longer have the right to stay in the army. With that she ran away. Judging by her attitude, she probably ran to the hospital to have her stomach pumped. After Dong Lijie ran away, the teacher and Wang Xiaolan, who were left behind, were stunned. Yun Jian, what did she mean by army? Wang Xiaolan asked Yun Jian in a daze. It seemed like Team Monarch. Wasn't a game? You understand what I mean. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She did not look at Dong Lijie again. Instead, she looked at Wang Xiaolan and said something that she did not fully understand. After that, she continued to learn the parenting style taught by the infant training class teacher. At the end of the day, Adam and Mawson still couldn't think of a good name. Yun Jian and Si only brought their children back to Longmen City when they were 5 months old. Due to Dong Ruan's presence as a high-ranking official, there was no rush to register them. Before registering, they planned to get engaged. It was 10:30 p.m. Yun Jian coaxed the 2 children to sleep. After putting them in the cradle, she turned around and went to the bathroom in the bedroom, intending to take a bath and sleep. Unexpectedly, just as Yun Jian stepped into the bathroom, Ce followed. Yun Jian had just taken off her outerwear when she saw Ce coming over. Although both of them had looked at each other naked many times, she still blushed when Ce stared at her. Who would have thought that Ce would come over and press her against the sink, and then... Don't, the children are still outside. When Ce carried her to the sink, Yun Jian's cheeks were rosy. Mama, yeah. Just as Ce was about to do something naughty, the children's voices rang in the bedroom. Hearing the voices, Yunjian dared not move an inch as if they were having an affair. In the next second, the children in the bedroom turned around. They were dreaming. They won't wake up. If they do, I'll throw them out of the door, Ce said unceremoniously. After that, he removed Yunjian's last piece of clothing. With a lift of his hand to her please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version. Chapter 24:13. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. The night was hazy. In the bedroom, the two children were sleeping in a large cradle beside the bed. The two children were breathing heavily and their little mouths were opening and closing. If anyone saw their pink and tender little faces, they might not be able to resist the urge to pinch their little cheeks. All of a sudden, the older brother lifted his short leg and leaned sideways. At the same time, the little guy's leg pressed down on the little girl's stomach with a paw sound. The two children were about the same weight, but the little one's leg suddenly lifted and landed on her body. After all, the child was only 5 months old. Wah! The little girl suddenly burst into tears as she slept. The little one's short leg could feel the little girl's trembling as she cried. His face twitched and he frowned. The little one turned over and continued sleeping comfortably. In the bathroom, Yunjian, who was just one step away from the end, heard the little girl's cries and held on to Ce. She's crying. Yunjian frowned. Her heart ached so much that she wanted to go out and comfort the child. Let her cry. She'll sleep when she's tired. Ce grabbed her hand and refused to let her go. No. Yunjian wanted to say something, but her words were drowned out by Ce's handsome lips. He continued with his perverted actions. Outside the bathroom, the little girl closed her eyes and cried. Inside the bathroom, it was a romantic scene. In the end, the little girl was tired from crying and fell asleep on her own. The night was still long. At night, in the villa, the dim yellow light in the bathroom flickered until 2 in the morning. The next day, 5 in the morning. In winter, the days were short and the sky was still dark. Yunjian packed her equipment. Before leaving for the military base, she secretly kissed the two children. Qin Yiru was now taking care of the children at home. Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duanya did not have to worry too much now. Qin Yiru placed all his attention on Guxing and Yunjian. After Yunjian left, Ce returned to an Hun group after 2 days in Longmen City. Before he left, however, Ce left Adam and Mo Sen behind to protect the children. Ce loved his and Yunjian's children very much. At least, he had left his most important assistants, Adam and Mo Sen, behind. Of course, this love was for Yunjian. He had to leave the children aside for now. Everything was back to normal. If she was not in good shape or had extra fat on her tummy, it would be immediately obvious when she wore such tight clothes. When Yunjian appeared before them, Dong Li Jie, Team Monarch, T-Rex Squad, and Most Awesome Squad, who had their faces covered in pee from the little one yesterday, gasped deeply. That perfect figure, as well as a cleavage that was bigger and rounder than before, made it hard for people to take their eyes off it. Ha, Yunjian, what have you been eating for the past year? You've developed so well. Chu Ning came over and bumped Yunjian's shoulder with her shoulder before glancing sideways at Yunjian's chest with a perverted look. Let's go pick our weapons. Yunjian pushed Chu Ning away and went to the armory. The members of the 3 squads were allowed to pick any weapon they wanted. However, there was a limit to the number of weapons they could bring, so they had to bring the weapon they were most comfortable with. Just as Yunjian entered the armory, Dong Li Jie from Most Awesome Squad rushed in. She took the only 3 butterfly knives in the armory before Yunjian could. She then looked at Yunjian provocatively and said to her team members, I'll pick the butterfly knife. I'm very good with butterfly knives. I once used it as a throwing knife to kill a bird flying in the sky. Obviously, Dong Li Jie did not tell everyone that Yunjian had a child. She probably wanted to keep a handle on Yunjian. You had 3 butterfly knives and you took all 3 of them. Don't you think that's too much? Butterfly knives are Yunjian's specialty. How could you? Chu Ning was stunned when she saw Dong Lijia's smug and deliberate expression. Obviously, Dong Lijia had done her research before this and knew that Yun Jian was good with butterfly knives. However, Yun Jian ignored Dong Lijia's smug expression and walked to the side to pick a silver pistol. She wiped the muzzle and twirled it in her hand before saying to Chu Ning, "I'll choose the pistol for this mission. I've never used a gun in front of you guys before, so you probably don't know that I'm as familiar with firearms as I am with butterfly knives." Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 24:14. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Yun Jian had been using a butterfly knife in front of Chu Ning and the rest. The news that Team Monarch Slashing God was the best at using a butterfly knife had spread far and wide. However, it was a fact that Yun Jian was the best at using a butterfly knife. What outsiders did not know was that apart from the butterfly knife, Yun Jian was also the best at using any weapon that was related to firearms. Whether it was an airplane, a tank, a cannon, a pistol, a machine gun, a rifle, a submachine gun, or a Gatling gun, Yun Jian was the best at using them all. As the number 1 on the International Secret Agent ranking, Slaying God had survived through bloodshed. To be able to survive through bloodshed, the most basic foundation was to be familiar with all weapons. Yun Jian did not use a butterfly knife every time she went on a mission. Life was not so perfect where one could get whatever one wanted. Sometimes, one did not even have to worry about having a weapon in hand. Yun Jian had encountered many situations where she had to fight with a group of international secret agents barehanded. However, even if she did not have a weapon, she still had her hands. When she snatched the weapon from the opponent's hand, the chances of her snatching the butterfly knife that she was so familiar with was only 1 in 10,000. There were no ifs in life. If Yun Jian placed all her hopes on snatching the enemy's weapon, and the enemy's weapon happened to be the one that she was familiar with, then Yun Jian would lose. What Yun Jian had to do was snatch the weapon from the opponent's hand when she was surrounded by them barehanded. She had to ensure that she could use whatever weapon the opponent had. That was the only way for her to survive. Compared to Yun Jian, who was at the top of the world, there was no such thing as being the best or worst at using a weapon. Any weapon in her hands would become a deadly trump card. This was the purpose of her growth. Unfortunately, Dong Lijia naively thought that Yun Jian was the best at using a butterfly knife and would not know how to use any other weapon. You know how to use a gun. As far as I know, the military school that you guys studied in back then didn't give you real guns to teach you how to shoot. As for the 2 squads that returned from overseas, they only learned how to use guns after going through the training and instruction of the world-class special forces. Don't tell me you're pretending to know when you don't? Dong Lijia looked at Yun Jian in shock. Yun Jian knew how to use a gun. This made Dong Lijia's most awesome squad and all the members of the T-Rex squad dumbfounded. The reason why the new commanding officer, Lu Cheng, looked down on Team Monarch was because the former members were not skilled enough. They were completely different from a group of SWAT students who had undergone actual combat training after returning from overseas. However, just as Dong Lijia and the other 2 parties apart from Team Monarch turned to look at Yun Jian in shock, Yun Jian had skillfully and professionally hidden the other weapons from the armory all over her body, leaving no trace behind. She left the armory and said to Chu Ning and the rest, "I'll wait for you outside." Yun Jian's blatant disregard made Dong Lijia even angrier. She clenched her fists. This girl's temper is quite explosive. I wonder how strong she is. But I know that hot-tempered girls usually aren't that strong. Team Monarch's strongest, Slashing God. I'd like to see how strong you are. Another guy from the most awesome squad muttered to himself while rubbing his chin as he watched Yun Jian leave the armory. The guy's eyes were full of contempt for Yun Jian's strength. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, you're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.